Hello, my spookies. I'm your host and narrator Enrique Couto, and tonight we're starting a holiday horror binge. A long, shivery marathon of terror tales you can lose yourself in while the tree glows and the wind whispers at the windows. This is the first of many. Every Saturday until New Year's, another overflowing bundle of bloody boot prints in the snow, letters from Santa that ruin lives, and a blizzard that hides something hunting between the drifts. So, plug in the lights, lock the door, and turn this up just enough to drown out whatever is moving out there in the dark. Make sure you're subscribed because there's more holiday horror every single Wednesday and honestly far beyond on Weekly Spooky. But now it's time to begin your holiday marathon of fear.
I'll Be Home for Christmas by Shane Migliavacca, a Weekly Spooky original.
It's never gonna stop, Cat Walker said to herself, watching as never-ending white fell outside. The dying embers of the day cast a soft glow that lit the snow-covered landscape in a blood-red hue. The wind howled, making the old walls of the house creak and strain. Cat was alone in the parlor, the gathering place for most of the social activity at Black Oaks. A tall Christmas tree sat in the room's center, its lights blinking on and off. The smell of cinnamon delighted Cat's senses. Cinnamon cookie ornaments hung from the tree branches, crafted in various Christmas-related forms. Santa, Frosty, snowflakes, and Christmas trees. All lovingly made by Black Oak's resident cook, Mallory Horst. A fire crackled in the fireplace, and the scent of burning wood hung in the air. The sound of whiskey flowing over ice pulled Cat from her thoughts. She watched fellow student Georgina Harris enter, reflected in the glass of the window. Georgina returned her metal flask to the folds of her expensive robe before crashing to the couch. The chic brunette lounged on the couch, her sleek legs visible at the robe's part. Taking a sip of whiskey, she lit a cigarette. The weather outside is indeed frightful, little kitten. Cat turned, angry at the interruption. She spun around so fast her long raven black hair fell across her eyes, stinging them. "What are you doing?" Cat blurted out, her anger getting the better of her. "Working towards a career in alcoholism and nicotine addiction?" Georgina smirked, raising her glass in a toast. "Just like dear old Mom." "You know the rules," Cat said. "If Miss Keene sees you..." Her voice lowered, as if saying the woman's name would summon the headmistress out of thin air. "Don't worry about it," Georgina took a puff off her cigarette. "It's not your ass on the line if I'm caught, kitten." "Fine," Cat gave up. Why did she care if the bitch got in trouble anyway? "And my name is Cat. I hate it when you call me kitten." Girls like Georgina were the reason Cat was at Black Oaks. She'd gotten in her fair share of fights with girls that thought they were better than her, thought they could tell Cat her place. Expulsion for Cat soon followed nearly every time. A slight red-haired girl with a fox-like face stood framed in the doorway, her freckled brow wrinkled in concern. She was wearing a snug, if preposterous, sweater. Robots danced around a Christmas tree on its front, and a pair of pale blue jeans. "There you guys are," Sue McCoy said, sounding relieved. "Miss Keene wanted to know if you guys wanted to exchange Christmas presents now or in the morning." Cat looked down at the presents, neatly arranged under the tree. She wondered how the tree looked at home. Her mom would have it all decked out with all the usual ornaments. This would be the first year Cat wouldn't be there to help her decorate it. She was stuck here at Black Oaks boarding school, mainly for the simple fact that her parents couldn't afford to come and get her, even if the weather did permit. Not that she was the only one stuck here for Christmas break. Georgina's mom and her new girlfriend were off to Barcelona for the holiday. Sue was still here because she preferred it to her home life. Why, Cat really wasn't sure, nor did she want to pry. The other two students still here, Lois Kincaid and Allison Gordy were both stuck due to the stubborn onslaught of the freak blizzard assaulting half of the country. Besides the remaining 5 girls, there was Miss Keene and Mallory still at the school. Georgina kicked one of the presents under the tree with an outstretched leg. "I say we get this shit over with." Sue turned to Kat. "Yeah, why not?" Kat answered. A half-hour later, wrapping paper littered the parlor's royal blue carpet. The girls had done a secret Santa, ensuring that each girl got a gift and they didn't have to spend a lot of money getting multiple presents. Kat sat with her knees drawn up on the floor, clutching her gift in her arms. A simple black t-shirt with "I'm against it" written on its front in a spray paint font. Whoever had drawn Kat's name, they certainly knew her tastes. Sitting next to her was Mallory. The cook was only a few years older than her and lived in town with her mother, who had held the position previously until entering her back. Now her daughter supported her. Kat had bonded with her, both feeling very much the outsider at Black Oaks. Mallory had a crisp, no-bullshit way of looking at things, and never sat around feeling sorry for herself or whining about the shit life had handed her. It was something Kat aspired to do herself. Mallory's Secret Santa bought her a simple pendant necklace. She wore it proudly around her neck, turning to smile at Kat as they all laughed at one of Miss Keene's stories. Kat drifted in and out of the story the woman was telling. Her ears picked up bits and pieces of the news playing on the TV behind them. The storm of the century, flights canceled, power outages, escaped mental patients, pile up on the thruway. The girls all laughed again and Kat joined in instinctively. Her thoughts turned back towards home. Were Mom and Dad celebrating tonight? Was Mom making her annual Christmas lasagna tomorrow? She hoped her parents were safe and happy. "What's on your mind?" Kat turned to see Mallory looking at her. "Nothing, just Christmas at home," Kat answered. "Miss your folks?" "Yeah, we don't always get along, but this time of year, though, all the shit of the year disappears," Kat smiled, thinking about the warm feeling she got sitting around the tree on Christmas morning. "How about you?" "Hope I can get back into town tomorrow, spend the day with Mom." "Hold hands, you lovebirds," Georgina mocked. The heavy scent of whiskey hung in the air as she spoke. Mallory made a face. "God, you're drunk," Georgina laughed. "Fuck yeah, townie." Kat noticed a repeated thumping sound under the din of the girls' laughter and the TV. It grew louder and more ferocious as seconds ticked by, until finally... "Someone's here," Kat said, springing up from the floor. All eyes turned toward her. They stared as if she was in a one-woman play written by a psychotic. "At the door," Kat added, already headed to the foyer. Kat fumbled with the door lock as the knocking outside intensified. Miss Keene and the girls gathered behind her. "I told you, there's somebody at the door." Kat felt vindicated as the knocking continued. "Maybe you shouldn't open that door," Sue spoke up. "It could be a crazy person." "It might be a rapist," Lois said. "Or a holy roller," Georgina added. "We'll be buried in watchtowers." From the other side of the door, a man spoke. "Please, I know you're in there. I need help." Kat looked at Miss Keene for guidance. The headmistress nodded her approval. Without hesitation, Kat unlocked the door. Wind and snow assaulted her immediately. A man, looking half dead, stood at the center of the maelstrom. His hair whipped about as if alive, and his eyes were wide with panic. The man stumbled into the house, helped along by Kat and Miss Keene. Sue struggled to shut the door behind them, the snow and wind fighting her. Mallory stepped in and helped her close the door. "Well, this is something," Georgina said, observing the scene before her. They took the stranger into the dining room. A large wood table sat at room's center. The room, much like the living room, had been decorated for the holiday. Lights and garland ran along the walls, and the table was covered by a tablecloth and placemats depicting Santa and his reindeer on Christmas night. Allison pulled out one of the chairs for the disheveled man. "Get him a blanket and some coffee," Miss Keene instructed Allison and Lois, sending the two girls racing off in opposite directions. I told them I'll be home for Christmas," the man said through chapped lips. He looked up into Kat's eyes. My wife and son, they're waiting for me." Miss Keene took the blanket from a returning Allison and draped it over the man's shoulders. "Were you in an accident?" The man hugged the blanket to himself before nodding. "Our bus went off the road. The snow made it hard to see." Lois came back with a steaming cup of coffee. The man gladly took the mug, holding it in his hands for the warmth it radiated. "Whereabout did you crash?" Miss Keene asked. "How many people were on the bus besides you?" "I don't know where. The storm made it hard to see any landmarks." The man took a sip of coffee. 10. I think there was maybe 10 on the bus." He pondered this for a moment before continuing. "I went for help and I got lost." He laughed grimly. "I was in the army. Some tracker I turned out to be. I used to go through the jungle like nothing." "We should call the police," Lois said. "And tell them what?" Georgina pointed out. "We don't know where this guy crashed. Where are we going to send them?" Mallory stepped forward. "She's right. We should get you to a hospital," Miss Keene said, turning towards the man. "I'll call for an ambulance." The headmistress left. There were only 2 working phones at Black Oaks, one in Miss Keene's office and the other in the rec room. The girls weren't allowed to have cell phones as they were felt to be too much of a distraction from their studies. The same went for the internet. The girls were allowed laptops for assignments, but couldn't even get those online. After a few minutes, a stone-faced Miss Keene returned. "The phone is out," she informed the girls, fighting to conceal any troubling emotion that might slip out. "It must be the blizzard." "I'm so hungry," the man groaned, his voice full of pain and regret. "I'm starving." Mallory went to the kitchen to get the man some food, while Kat and the others stayed with him in the dining room. "Under the circumstances," Miss Keene addressed the group, "I think it best I drove into town with our guest. We can get him help and get a search started for that bus." There was some debate over the idea before the headmistress's authority won out over the girls' doubts. Miss Keene agreed to take Lois and Allison with her and the man into town. The stranger greedily devoured the tuna fish sandwich Mallory brought him as Miss Keene and the 2 girls geared up for their trip. Kat donated one of her trench coats for the man to wear out into the bitter cold. The remaining girls watched as the 4 headed towards the garage, the 4 swallowed up by the blizzard. Kat took one last look outside before closing and locking the door. Georgina sauntered off back to the parlor. "Back to our regularly scheduled program," she quipped. Anxious, Kat glanced out the window. It had been 15 minutes. Shouldn't she have seen something from the garage by now? A light from the car through the billowing snow? Just something to confirm they'd left? "I don't like this," she muttered. "Where are they?" "It's going to take time in this weather," Sue answered. Pulling on her jacket and hat, she unlocked the door. "I'm going to go check on them, just to make sure." Sue thought about it. "Can't hurt. I'll go with." "We'll hold down the fort," Georgina said, lighting up a cigarette. As soon as Sue was ready, the 2 girls headed outside. Mallory stood inside the doorframe. "Hurry back. I'll have some hot chocolate waiting. Don't leave me alone with that boozy bitch for too long." Kat laughed. "Don't worry, we won't." "I heard that," Georgina hollered from the parlor. "Don't care," Mallory shot back, slamming the door shut. The snow was ankle-deep as the girls made their way down the walk, holding gloved hands as snow and bitter cold wind raged around them. Cold snow slipped down into Kat's boots. She felt her nose start to run as her cheeks reddened. Halfway to the garage, she was already regretting coming out here. "Why couldn't the fucking garage be connected to the damn house?" she moaned. Sue made a face. Kat had forgot the girl's disdain for colorful language. With the garage in sight, the pair were surprised to see the garage door still closed. Car headlights visible from within the slats. Entering, the girls found Miss Keene's van sitting there. Headlights on. Doors closed. Melting snow footprints led to the van, but none led away. There seemed to be something smeared on the interior windows, making it hard to see inside. The faint sound of music came from within the vehicle. "Is that Buddy Holly?" she asked. It was indeed. As Buddy sang about a love that never fades away, Kat touched the handle of the driver's side door. She glanced at Sue, who nodded in approval. Kat turned the handle, slowly opening the door. "Miss Keene, is everything all right?" In response, something fell from the van with a moist thud, rolling to a stop next to Sue's feet, causing her to scream. Before Kat could turn to see what was wrong, her eyes were caught by the van's interior, which was covered in splashes of dripping crimson. Human limbs, chunks of flesh, and what appeared to be intestines littered the front seats. The next thing Kat knew, what she'd had for dinner now covered her boots and part of the floor. "Oh, God!" Kat groaned. Sue had stopped screaming and was now doing an impromptu impression of a Monty Python routine. It's... Miss Keene's head lay at Sue's feet. The dead headmistress's eyes were wide, with terror. "I'm starving." The stranger's voice came from somewhere in the shadows of the garage. "I couldn't help it." Kat took Sue's hand, ready to drag the girl out of there if need be. Backing towards the side door they entered by, they hadn't gotten more than a few steps when something slithered out from under the van. The thing grabbed Sue by the leg and wrenched the startled girl off her feet, which caused Kat to lose her footing as well. Desperately, Kat scrambled to grab the screaming girl's outstretched hand. The thing that had hold of Sue was faster, dragging the red-haired girl into the darkness under the van. Screaming once more filled the air, before being suddenly cut off. Gripped by terror, Kat half-crawled, half-ran for the door. Stumbling out into the snow, Kat gasped for breath as the wind hammered her. Heart pounding, she retraced her footprints in the snowdrifts. She tried to block what she saw in the van from her head, tried not to think about what must be happening to Sue back there in the garage. It had happened so fast. Could she have possibly saved her? Back at the main house, Kat found the front door locked. Pounding on it, she waited, prayed for someone to open it. Suddenly overtaken with the feeling that someone was behind her, Kat spun around. In the distance through the snow, she saw them standing there at the end of the driveway. 3 figures. Then she saw 2 more, standing in a drift on the lawn, their features obscured by snow and distance. She wanted to call out to them for help, but something about them felt wrong, filling her head with dread. She returned to pounding the door frantically. The door opened. Kat pushed past a slightly aggravated Georgina, nearly falling to her knees, panic-stricken and out of breath. Tears and snot were frozen to her face. "What the hell?" Georgina said. "Who's that out there?" She poked her head out the door. "Who are those people?" "Close the door," Kat gasped, warm air burning her lungs. "Lock it." Georgina slammed the door shut, clicking the deadbolt in place as Stevie Nicks belted out Silent Night from the parlor's TV. Kat stood, feeling her knees shake. Looking down at her shirt, she noticed chunks of vomit. Pulling off her coat and shirt, Kat walked into the parlor. Georgina followed her. "What the fuck is going on? Where's the sidekick?" Kat pulled on her "I'm against it" t-shirt. She took a deep breath, not wanting to say the words. "She's dead." Georgina laughed. "What? Are you shitting me?" "No." Kat's eyes scanned the room. "Where's Mallory?" "In the kitchen, washing dishes or some shit." "Sue's dead? What the fuck?" Kat took off for the kitchen, Georgina storming after her, profanity flowing freely from her mouth. They found Mallory in the kitchen, standing uneasily next to the stranger, seated at the counter, eating a sandwich. "Your friend made me a nice sandwich." He took a bite from it, blood running down his chin. As he chewed, pieces of fleshy meat stuck to the corners of his mouth. "That's disgusting," Georgina gasped. "Mallory, get away from him." Kat reached out towards the young cook. A large kitchen knife gleamed near Mallory's side, held in the stranger's free hand. "I think she's fine right here." The man smiled bloodily. "Oh, there's a hair in my mouth." He pulled a red hair from between his teeth. "Who the fuck are you?" Georgina asked, horrified and angry. "Just a man, on his way home from a pointless war in the jungle, sick of being called baby killer. Just wanted to get home to my wife and boy for Christmas." The man sighed, his eyes focusing on something long gone. And then that goddamn blizzard hit. The old drunk behind the wheel of the bus drove us into a ditch on some backwoods road. I went for help with one of the passengers, and we got lost in the storm. A chill ran down Kat's spine as the man spoke. I don't know how long we were out there. I got so hungry, and the other man was falling behind. In the bush, you had to do anything it took to survive. He was holding me back, and I needed food, so... The man licked his blood-caked lips and laughed. And then the next day, I found myself back at the fucking bus. Those ungrateful shits criticizing me for getting lost, accusing me after everything I did, everything I went through. It was too much. And a man's gotta eat. Kat felt sick to her stomach. She willed herself not to throw up for a second time. That night, it came to me. Standing there at the edge of the trees, it called to me. Wendigo. Demon spirit. My burden, my curse. The hunger inside me. That's where it lives, keeping me alive. To feed it. Georgina scoffed. That's a pretty fucked up story, buddy. What are you smoking, and can I get some? A loud knock came from the door. They're here, the man said as he stood. I hate to eat and run, but they're company I try not to keep. Who are those people out there? Georgina asked. I really must be going. I fucked around here too long. The stranger held the tip of the knife to Mallory's throat. I was looking forward to sampling all of this young flesh. Tastes so much better than that old hag in the car. He backed towards the rear door that connected the kitchen to the courtyard behind the main house. Another knock came from the front door. Shit. I don't think I have time to even slaughter you bitches properly. I'll have to be quick. Kat scanned the kitchen quickly. The stranger could kill Mallory before she got to a knife. There had to be something else. A third knock came from the front door. With his free hand, the stranger yanked Mallory's head back by her long blonde hair, exposing her neck. Quick and easy, babe, the stranger grinned. The whine of a kettle sliced through the tension of the kitchen, causing the man to look up from his prey just in time to see Kat snatch it from the stove. Have a little hot chocolate, Kat screamed as the scalding water hit the man dead center in the face. He let go of Mallory and the knife as he held his face, screaming in pain. Mallory screamed herself as some of the water had hit her as well. Kat hurled the now empty kettle at the wounded stranger. Georgina, for her part, pulled the startled Mallory to her feet. Let's get the fuck out of here, Georgina shouted. The girls started towards the door, but the man blocked their escape route, holding his ragged face with one hand and a knife in the other. You cunts aren't going anywhere. The trio of girls turned and ran out the kitchen down the hallway towards the front door. Out there? Georgina stopped them. What choice do we have? Kat said. Out one of the windows, Mallory answered. The stranger stood in the hallway, having replaced the knife with a meat cleaver. You ain't going anywhere. I could have ran, but you three really pissed me off. The knocking on the door turned into a loud banging. The man charged them with the cleaver, forcing the girls to run into the parlor, slicing at them as they went. Georgina lunged towards the fireplace, grabbing a poker. Spinning around, she confronted the stranger, swinging the poker at him. It collided with the stranger's head with a sickening thud. Never mess with a chick from the Upper East Side, asshole! Georgina followed up with a couple of hard swings, but her cockiness was her downfall as the stranger caught the poker, yanking it from her grip. He kicked her in the gut, doubling Georgina over in pain. Throwing the poker aside, the stranger hoisted the cleaver, ready to strike down on the stunned girl. Kat ran towards the man, howling like a banshee, attempting to tackle him. She grabbed the man's hand, holding the cleaver. The two struggled, but the man was stronger and a trained fighter. Using Kat's weight and momentum against her, he sent her sailing into the Christmas tree with a loud crash. Both the girls and the tree went down in an explosion of tinsel and ornaments. From the foyer came a sound of straining wood as the pounding assault continued on the front door. Kat, now caught up in the tinsel and lights of the tree, struggled to free herself. The man stalked towards her, a desperate, evil smile on his burned lips. She watched helpless, unable to defend herself. A strand of lights dropped over his head, wrapping around his neck. Standing behind him, Mallory pulled it tight, choking him, holding tight. The young cook pulled him away from Cat. The pair stumbled towards the fire, the man clumsily taking wild swings with the cleaver, trying to hit Mallory behind him. Taking a handful of the man's unkempt hair with one hand and holding the strand tight with the other, Mallory rammed the man's head into the mantle repeatedly until the bloodied and battered man pushed away from her. Yanking the strand from his neck, he hurled it to the ground. Finally free of the Christmas tree, Cat was on her feet. Picking up the discarded fire poker, she attacked the stranger, screaming as she beat him. Georgina picked up a second poker and swung primally as well, forcing the man to fall to his knees. The girls stopped when the front door shattered. The three girls turned as something shambled into the house. Standing, framed in the parlor door, stood a decayed corpse, dressed in a tattered, age-ravaged bus driver's uniform. Standing behind it were similarly decayed corpses. The three girls stood tall and readied themselves for a new fight. To their surprise, the dead ignored the three. The walking corpses surrounded the man, who now knelt, laughing hysterically. Behind him, the discarded strand had partially fallen into the fireplace, burning like a fuse. It had lit the carpet up. The fire was quickly spreading. "Come and get it, you bastards," the man laughed as the dead descended on him, ripping at his flesh. "Let's get the fuck out of here," Kat said as she watched the man being ripped apart. The three girls hurried out of the house as the fire and the dead claimed it. They stood on the lawn for several minutes, watching the house burn, holding their jackets tight in the bitter cold. "So now what?" Georgina asked. "Walk to town?" Kat said. Mallory shook her head. "We should wait out the fire and the storm in one of the staff buildings. They're far enough away not to catch fire. We should be warm there." "Sounds like a plan," Georgina said. Kat looked at her two friends. "Merry Christmas, guys." "Bah, humbug," Georgina laughed. The three girls trudged through the snow. Kat turned to take a last look at the burning building before continuing on. Christmas Rage by Rob Fields. December 23rd, evening. Strickfield Town Center Mall only seemed to be a hopping place around the holidays. The vacancies left during the usual 10 months out of the year were mostly filled by seasonal stores. There was even a Santa Claus house in the mall's center court. Families would line up with their children, many of whom had Christmas lists to give to Santa. But on this day, things were about to take a macabre turn. Santa Claus had just taken his seat on his throne. Templeton Mirren, the owner of the mall, and his family were right there in front of him. Santa just sat there and looked right at them. Templeton appeared to be patient. When Santa's silence got to be too much, Templeton leaned in and whispered loudly, "If you don't get your act together, Stanley, you'll be enjoying this Christmas on your fucking welfare check." Stanley Monroe was always tapped to play Santa Claus from Black Friday until Christmas Eve at the Strickfield Town Center Mall. But as Santa slowly stood up and glared at Templeton Mirren and his family, he seemed to have a foreboding presence. Then, Santa opened the door to his house and received several screams when the slain, bloody body of Stanley Monroe just fell out onto the porch. The family scattered in different directions. Santa took his time as he reached inside the house and pulled out the same bloody axe that he had used on Stanley earlier. Then he marched toward Templeton Mirren, raising his lethal weapon. Templeton Mirren turned and yanked a nearby father right in front of the Santa. The father never uttered a peep as Santa buried the blade right in his head. The other bystanders were too frightened to see what Templeton Mirren had done. They never saw him or his wicked wife grab their children and leave. From there, Santa pulled the axe out of the father's head and buried it into another bystander. As it came upon a midnight clear, slowly began to play over the mall speakers. Christmas Eve morning. I awaken in a different room and remember that I'm here at Franklin Sloane's house. Franklin invited me to come home with him for Christmas. Franklin and I have been seeing each other since late August. In fact, he's been my only companion this semester. After I take a shower and get dressed, I hear arguing downstairs. I make my way down and stop short when I hear that I'm the topic of discussion. Actually, it's more like Franklin's parents are giving him a hard time about me. The more I listen, the more I hear his father, Joseph, and his stepmother, Delphine, just discouraging him. His dad tells him there's no way that a big-titted putana like me would ever care for him. They tell him that I'm just using him for my own selfish ends. Franklin argues back and tells them that I'm nothing like that. He tells them we've been seeing each other since the beginning of the fall semester. He asks them what I could possibly be using him for. Here's the irony. I am using Franklin, but not for the reasons his parents are implying. They think I'm with him for money, or that I'm waiting to humiliate him. I'm fully aware that people look at Franklin and decide that he's the biggest nerd there is. Do you have any idea how many times I've heard people whisper that to each other when they think I'm not listening? I even hear those same people wondering how someone like me would even be with Franklin. Delphine tells Franklin that I'm way too beautiful for him. She even tells Franklin that I would never have sex with him, that people like me belong with fraternity boys. Yes, I certainly could have had my pick of a fraternity boy or even a jock. The problem with those types of guys is that they would only want to have sex with me just for a short time. They would not want to commit to me. No, I need much more than they're willing to give. For those of you who haven't been following me since the beginning, from the time I came into the world, I have never felt so much as a single emotion. Perhaps my being emotionless is why I'm a serial killer. Your society has labeled me the angel of death because I destroy those who prey on innocent people. I suppose the closest thing to emotion that I feel is my ever-insistent bloodlust, which pushes me onward to claim my victims. In fact, I'm feeling the urgent need to kill right now. I make my way to the dining room. The family doesn't hear me come in until I'm right there, right when Franklin yells at Delphine, "That's your problem. You always think everybody's out to get me. Well, rage isn't like that at all." Franklin becomes quiet when he realizes I'm here. The family is just looking at me now. Perhaps I should just go, I say. Clearly I'm not wanted or welcome here. I'll just get my things and go back to my dorm. Delphine looks sternly at me. "You heard everything?" I nod once. "I did. And you're wrong about me." I fold my arms in front of me. "Please enlighten me. What do I hope to gain by using Franklin?" Delphine takes a deep breath. "Do you see yourself, Reagan? Do you see Franklin? Do you see how completely mismatched the two of you are? You can have any man you want. Why would you settle for Franklin?" While I myself don't have emotions, I have come to understand a great deal about how emotions can move people, both positively and negatively. Watching enough television and being around Mama long enough will do that for someone like me. So let me get this straight. Just because I'm a beautiful girl and Franklin's a nerd, I would not want to be with someone like him? Then why would I date Franklin? Why would I agree to come home with him for Christmas? Delphine glares at me now. "Well, I don't know. Why don't you tell us?" "I agreed to come here with Franklin because he asked me to," I reply. "I wasn't going home for Christmas and Franklin didn't want me to be alone. I'm thinking he invited me out of the kindness of his heart. That's why I choose to be with Franklin. He's kind to me. He's never once tried to take advantage of me. I enjoy his company." I unfold and lower my arms. "I can't believe that you and your husband would cut Franklin down like this, especially you, a church minister." Delphine took over being the minister of Strickfield Community Church after the scandal with Minister Darren Harlow years ago. Yes, it's the usual type of scandal you read about. with children. After Harlow was removed, Delphine became the new minister. She had to work very hard to keep the church going, but she managed to do it. I was a freshman in high school when this happened, by the way. Delphine's been quite strict on Franklin ever since, according to what he's told me about her and from what I've just witnessed. I put a comforting hand on Franklin's shoulder. Are you all right? Franklin shakes his head. Can we just leave, Rage? Yes, we can, I reply. Go pack a few things and we can have Christmas at my dorm. Franklin leaves the dining room. His parents only glare at me before I turn and head back up to the guest room to pack my things. You're thinking that I want to kill them both, right? Nope. They're both innocent, so I can't kill them. Ah, yes. Now we're getting to what I want to tell you. I currently have an even greater need to satisfy, even more than my need to kill. Now, while I don't feel anything emotional, I do feel things that are physical. I know when I need to eat, drink, sleep, clean my body, seek comfort. I did say that I'm looking to use Franklin. As of late, I'm feeling the need to have sex. I was able to get by for many years without having to fulfill this basic need. Now, my sex drive is becoming as insistent as my bloodlust. It's because of this that I've come to realize that I need a mate, a constant companion. I need someone who can be good company for me and satisfy my sexual desires when the need arises. In turn, I would be just as responsive to my mate. Would you call me a primal girl in spite of my highly developed brain? Perhaps you would be right. Franklin Sloan is one of the few young men at Strickfield University who's taken an interest in me. Over time, he's shown me that he is both a suitable companion and an intellectual peer. I really don't care that Franklin is a skinny nerd who talks about chess or contemporary movies. I don't even care that the rest of you in the female population are repulsed by him. Unlike you, I don't have it in me to be repulsed by him. On the other hand, I don't even have it in me to be able to love him. Regardless, Franklin has proven himself to be a suitable companion for me, and my desire is for him to be my mate. Franklin comes and gets me. You ready, Rage? Yes, we can go. We head downstairs to the front door. Before we leave, Franklin turns to his parents. I really thought we were going to have a normal family Christmas this time, even with my bringing Rage. But I can see now that's never going to happen. Come on, Rage, let's go. Once more, Franklin's parents exchange looks. Then I turn and leave with Franklin. Franklin is settled in my dorm room. I didn't have a roommate during the fall semester. The only reason I'm allowed to stay over the holiday break is because I'm attending classes here at Strickfield University next semester. Franklin looks pretty down. I'm sorry you had to see that back home, Rage. We're both sitting on our beds. I reach across and take his hands. May I say something? He raises his eyes to mine. Sure. I know you're probably having your doubts about me. Please don't. I really do want to be with you. But why, Rage? Why are you still with me? Delphine's right. You can have any man you want. I could ramble to Franklin about why I want him, but I've learned that actions can speak a lot for a person. Still holding his hands, I move across to Franklin's bed. Then we kiss. The more we get into our kiss, the more I'm feeling that I can't hold back anymore. I need him so desperately. I let go of his hands. Franklin is surprised when he sees me stand up and take off my clothes. Once I'm naked, I pull back the covers on my bed and lay down to face him. It's just you and me, Franklin. The dorm is all ours. I want to take this next step with you. If you do too, then come, be with me. I only want and desire you, Franklin. Franklin trusts me enough to where he knows I'm sincere. He removes his clothes and climbs into bed with me. Christmas Eve, late afternoon. The Strickfield Community Center was always a place where parents could bring their children on Christmas Eve for things such as Christmas stories, Christmas cakes and cookies, hot chocolate, and visiting with Santa. It had been just as much of a tradition as the fact that each and every household in Strickfield would be decorated to make the village look like a winter wonderland, with the exception of the walled-off property that belonged to the Mirrens. In fact, Delphine Brewster Sloan helped run the establishment, along with a few other mothers. Delphine was making more mugs of hot chocolate when Mrs. Patterson walked into the kitchen. She gave Delphine a look of desperation. "Mary, what's wrong? Hasn't our Santa arrived yet?" Delphine asked. Mary Patterson reached out, stopped motionless for a moment, then fell flat on her face to reveal the axe that was sticking out of her back. Delphine screamed, then she looked up and screamed even louder as the blood-stained Santa Claus stormed in and retrieved the axe from Mary Patterson's back. Santa looked right at Delphine and watched her scream when he drew back the axe. Somehow she forced herself to duck. When the axe blade became embedded in a cupboard, Delphine shoved Santa down and ran out. Delphine tried to yell for everyone to leave. Quickly, the shrilling scream of the Santa Claus from hell overshadowed the soft Christmas music. Then more screams overshadowed Santa's as he chased after people while swinging the axe, sinking it into a few more parents. Delphine grabbed a folding chair and moved at Santa to try and keep him from killing any more parents, or even children. Santa howled with rage and disarmed Delphine with a few hard swings of the axe. Santa shoved her down and raised the axe for the kill. Delphine held her hands up and screamed as her life flashed right before her eyes. Christmas Eve evening. I awaken and know that Franklin and I are spooned up together. We spent much of the afternoon having sex. Franklin has definitely proven to be my chosen mate as he satisfied my every desire. I, in turn, focused to satisfy his. Then we fell asleep together. My need for sex is satisfied, for the time being. However, my need to kill is as urgent as ever. I managed to slip out of bed. Franklin is still fast asleep. I need to go out and prowl for a kill. Since it's Christmas Eve, I don't really think I'm going to find anyone. I may end up having to wait until the day after Christmas to look for somebody. My bloodlust is demanding satisfaction, but I'm not going to take an innocent to do it. I get dressed and grab my smartphone. I leave the dorm and begin my walk around Strickfield. If Franklin texts me, I'll just tell him that I'm picking up food for us from either Andy's China Garden or Denoyer's Grill downtown, which are always open. If I had emotions, I'm sure it would simply amaze me at how this village goes all out for many of the holidays, including Christmas. Every house is decorated and lit brightly. Some of the yards even have animatronics. In spite of all this, I still continue to feel my constant numbness. It isn't long before I hear the sounds of police cars in the distance. I decide to go and see what's going on. I know I'm only a police intern, which is why I'm not being called. Strickfield PD only calls me when it comes to detective work. If there are that many police cars, it's probably something more dire that doesn't require detective work. Just the same, I'm going to go and see for myself. When I get to the scene, the Strickfield Community Center, Mayor Patrick Gunter recognizes me and waves for me to come over. "I know you've been helping the police, but this doesn't require you tonight." "Can you at least tell me what's going on?" I ask. Mayor Gunter tells me that there's an escaped lunatic from Glenview Asylum inside the building wearing a Santa Claus suit and killing people left and right. He mentions how this Santa left bodies all over Center Court at Strickfield Town Center Mall last night. As Mayor Gunter keeps talking, my bloodlust is going crazy, commanding me to claim this Santa. Just what Mayor Gunter tells me alone is enough to where I don't have to do my usual research. But the question now is, how do I get inside the community center without the police seeing me? Then I immediately have a plan and proceed with its execution. I say goodbye to Mayor Gunter and wish him a good holiday. I know the village of Strickfield very well, thanks to all the maps on hand at the police station, including the one for the sewer system. Because of my highly photographic memory, I immediately remembered the way into the community center through the sewer tunnels. I open a manhole cover down in the crawl space where the shower pipes are located and come out that way. After putting the cover back on, I begin my hunt for this Santa. My bloodlust is nagging at me now. It doesn't take me long to locate Santa. He's got a few women trapped in the kitchen, and then I immediately recognize Franklin's stepmother as one of them. When we started seeing each other, Franklin told me that Delphine volunteers her time here when she's not being the minister for Strickfield Community Church. It looks as though Delphine got beat up, but she's still alive. I know that Franklin would be devastated if anything were to happen to his parents. The two of them put Franklin down, and yet he still thinks the world of them. I literally don't understand it. Just the same, I know I've got to do something to save these people. Santa never says a word. He just glares at the 8 women he's holding hostage. He even raises his axe and brings it down in front of them, making them shriek or scream. Even I understand how cowardly it is for an empowered male to attack a helpless female. I tighten my fists as my bloodlust now screams for me to take his fucking life. I must use my head. I can't just go in there and fight him. It would be different if Santa wasn't toying with those women. Then I move stealthily into the kitchen. He doesn't see me as I carefully slide open a drawer and pull out a kitchen knife. All I have to do is just draw it back. Then I'll fling it right into his back. As I raise the knife for the kill, I get a text chime on my smartphone and know it's from Franklin. That throws off my plan as Santa turns and sees me with my knife raised. He screams and rushes right at me. Delphine is surprised to see me now. "Reagan, no!" she cries out. When Santa reaches me, he swings the axe wildly. I quickly hit the floor and feel the rush of the blade go right over the back of my head. As I quickly turn onto my back, Santa raises his axe and brings it down. I turn over again and hear it hit the floor. I get to my feet and kick Santa in the back of the knee to take his leg out from underneath him. Santa growls and falls to the floor. I still have the knife in my hand. Before I can raise it to stab him, Delphine surprises both of us by crying out and ripping the axe away from Santa. "Reagan, get out of here, now!" Delphine cries. Santa quickly gets back to his feet, then he reaches out and grabs the axe, having a struggle with Delphine. I don't see the other women that were with Delphine and determine that she must have gotten them out while I was distracting Santa. I'm definitely ready to stab Santa now, but I know that I can't let Delphine... Wait a minute. She won't know that I'm a serial killer. Killing Santa would just be a matter of helping Delphine. Of self-defense. Neither Delphine nor Santa can see what must be the evil glow in my eyes that all of my past victims have seen. All I have to do is move up behind Santa. Delphine will be splattered with his blood once I slice his throat, but common sense gets the better of me. I can't let Delphine see just how violent I can truly become. She might tell Franklin, and I would possibly lose my mate. I have another idea. I quickly make my way around to where Santa can easily see me. "Hey!" Santa's eyes are on me as I pull my Christmas sweater up and show him my large breasts. "Peek-a-boobies!" His eyes are locked right on my breasts, which gives Delphine the advantage. She yanks the axe out of Santa's hands and swings it to catch him right in the gut. He groans and stands for a long moment. I pull my sweater down as Delphine removes the axe and nails him one more time before he finally goes down. I quickly pull out my smartphone and call the police. I get Mayor Gunter and tell him that everything's all right and that Santa is slayed. My bloodlust is screaming at me for a fresh victim. But I had to give my kill to Delphine to keep my secret. Delphine and I are alone now after I finish talking to Mayor Gunter. She turns to me and gives me a stern look. "Really, Reagan? Showing him your dirty pillows?" I look sternly at her in return. "You are still alive because of my dirty pillows. Never forget that." Delphine and I keep glaring at one another. Finally, Delphine softens her expression and sighs. She looks around and moves to make sure that we're truly alone. I can't imagine why she would need to do that. She returns to me. "Yes, you did save many lives today, Reagan." Then she leans in and says quietly, "I know who and what you are. Don't try to hide it from me. You are the angel of death." Then she backs away to get my reaction. I just look at Delphine. "I think you're mistaken." Delphine shakes her head slowly. "I'm not. You don't know, Reagan, but many years ago, you saved many lives that night, including mine." Just then, Mayor Gunter comes in with some police officers. He points right at me. "Reagan Devereaux, over here, now!" Delphine mouths to me, "We'll talk later." I nod to her and address Mayor Gunter, who gives me hell for not keeping my distance on the count of my being a college intern. At the same time, he congratulates me on being the hero. Of course, I make sure that Delphine is given her fair share of the credit, since I didn't stop that Santa from hell alone. Christmas afternoon. I look into the eyes of Templeton Mirren after I remove his blindfold. Then I remove his wife's. I have both of them secured to tables in their basement. Then I remove their gags. "What the fuck is this?" Destiny Mirren demands. I move to the front where they can see me. I have a remote control in my hand and I turn on their television. "I have a little video here that I'd very much like the two of you to see," I tell them. I play what is the security camera footage that was taken from the Strickfield Town Center Mall. Could I have gotten any more lucky? Chief Kazmarek was a little strapped at the station, so he asked me if I'd stick around and go through the security footage from the mall. After texting Franklin and letting him know where I was, I went to the station and looked over the footage. Then I saw the angle to where Templeton Mirren had grabbed an innocent man and pulled him right into the path of the killer Santa, just so he could preserve his own life. His wife had seen what her husband had done and wasn't concerned in the least. She only moved to get Templeton and the kids out of the mall quickly. Neither Destiny nor Templeton looked back. After finishing the footage, I stop the video and look at them. "Any questions?" "So what?" Destiny groans, looking as annoyed as she sounded. "All this over an insignificant man?" Templeton adds. "It looks to me as if your family could have easily gotten away, but you grabbed that man and pulled him right in front of the killer, guaranteeing his death. In effect, you killed him in cold blood. Your wife saw you and didn't care, in effect condoning what you did. So now, I'm going to claim the both of you. Your children are with their grandparents. I've even disabled your cameras in your security system. It's just the three of us here. I even have pictures to display of shady bank records and illegal money laundering. I even found some darknet stuff that they were involved in. Too much to list here, but seeing the security video from his own mall was more than a red flag for me. Normally, I'd have killed them just based on that, but I wanted more to give to the police. After all, these two are from the infamous Mirren family. The two of them are quite emotionless. The only difference between these Mirrens and myself is that I was naturally born without emotions. These two are of great money and privilege, so much that they just stopped caring. I'm wearing a plastic poncho and have an axe cradled in my hands. Oh wait, it looks as if they do know fear. They see my evil glare and beg for their lives. Oh, but it's far too late for that. Templeton and Destiny Mirren, let the punishment fit the crime. Destiny screams as I bring the axe right down on her face, and I feel so much better, now that my bloodlust is finally being satiated. Christmas evening. Delphine called Franklin and made things right with him. She even told him to bring me back to the house for Christmas dinner. I agreed when he asked me, and all was well. Franklin's dad still gave me some distrustful looks, but that was it. Delphine asked me to help her in the kitchen so we could have our little talk. As it turned out, Delphine had indeed discovered my secret. When she said that I had saved the lives of her and many children that night, it was because she had discovered Minister Harlow's terrible secret. She had tried to stop him on her own using the legal system, but his influence was too strong. She decided that she would bring him down alone, even if it meant breaking the commandment regarding killing. As it turned out, I had read the story about Harlow in our newspaper in North Ridgeway. I came to Strickfield to claim him after I did my research. I broke into Harlow's house, not knowing that Delphine was already there ahead of me. I ended up finding 5 children that Harlow had locked up in his basement. I freed them and told them to keep quiet. Harlow wasn't expecting a high school freshman girl to come for him. After going up to the second floor and beating the living shit out of Harlow, I tied him up to his bed and castrated him. Even then, I remembered Mama's words about making the punishment fit the crime. Delphine had been hiding in a closet, possibly waiting for the right moment to strike Harlow herself, and discovered that I was the angel of death. After cleaning myself up, I gave one of my burner phones to the kids and told them to call the police. Delphine told me that after I had left, she had explained everything to the police, leaving me out of it. Delphine gave me a big hug and thanked me for what I had done, today and back then. She promised me that she would keep my secret. The only thing she asked was for me not to hurt Franklin. I, in turn, promised her that I wouldn't. Delphine never so much as gave me or Franklin a hard time ever again. That night, Franklin and I go back to my dorm. After we have sex, Franklin and I talk. He tells me that he only wants to make me happy. I tell him that I am. Well, in my own way, I'm more than content on having Franklin Sloan as my mate, and I tell him that I'm not leaving him. Franklin has a realization. I have something for you, Rage. He gets out of bed and brings me a small gift-wrapped box. I unwrap and open it to reveal his high school class ring. It's not much, Franklin tells me, but I know how I feel about you. Maybe Dad and Delphine are right about you being too good for me, but I need to know, Reagan Devereaux, will you marry me? I will, I say without hesitation. Franklin is speechless in his emotions, but he finally finds himself and puts his ring on my finger. I return the favor by giving him my high school ring on a necklace. I only wish that I could feel the love that Franklin feels for me. Regardless, I will be a good wife to him, as he will be a good husband to me. So, this turned out to be a very good Christmas for me after all. Merry Christmas, everyone. Don't be naughty. Welcome to Tiny Christmas, Iowa, by Michelle Adler. I let out a sigh as my Uber passed the "Now entering Tiny Christmas, Iowa" sign. According to the sign, it's the tiniest, most Christmassiest place in all of Iowa. My Uber driver Ajit chuckled, sensing my displeasure. I'm sure it's just as Christmassy as all fuck, I say, trying to come off as cheery and almost succeeding until that curse word at the end. I lied on my interview. I hate Christmas. I hate the Midwest. The only thing I know about Iowa is that it's a Slipknot album, and I've never designed a window display in my life. I am just an unemployable, grumpy freelance graphic designer from New York City trying to find any work that isn't stocking shelves at a grocery store. To be honest, I didn't realize the position was out of state until after I'd applied. I'd initially intended to turn the job down as I'd never had any desire to live anywhere other than the city that never sleeps. The high-rise condos, rats, street vendors, homeless people on every street corner, bodegas also on every corner, and constant bustle are things I've lived for. But at this point, maybe it's time to stop pretending I could make it in NYC anymore. It wasn't like I had a support system either. No family left and no friends to speak of. I hadn't even been on a date in the last 2 years. My social life revolved mostly around my interactions with my landlord, none of which were pleasant. I heard that she was so happy I was leaving, apparently she even threw me a goodbye party. After I left. I lived for my work, but things have been so hard lately. Maybe it was time for me to give up. Maybe it was time for me to start over. Ma'am? That's all good and fine, but we're here, Ajit said while simultaneously unlocking the doors. I hadn't realized we'd even stopped. Or that I was talking out loud. I guess it had been a while since I'd been around other people. I started to open the door before even looking at where I was. When I did, I pulled it back shut, "This can't be right," I mumbled, fumbling for my phone to pull up the address I'd been given. I was sure I was supposed to be in front of a house, my new house, or, I don't know, anything, but instead we sat in a desolate parking lot on the outskirts of what was hopefully the correct town at least, though it looked anything but Christmassy. In front of me bloomed an industrial complex with a small collection of seemingly long-abandoned warehouses and factories. I felt a jolt of fear ping through my body. It was quiet here. Too quiet. Quiet enough for me to be raped and murdered without anyone noticing. "This is as far as I can take you." I jumped as I realized Ajit was already grabbing my luggage from the trunk. "What? Why? So no murder then?" "It's a small town and a beautiful day. Why not take a nice stroll through town on your way? I think the farmer's market goes till 3. He dodged. "No, I don't want to walk, and it's 30 degrees, I said while repositioning the luggage he'd removed back into the Uber. "I just want you to finish driving me. What's the big deal? It's your job, for Christ's sake." Ajit paused. "Listen, I don't go in there. Tiny Christmas is not a town for people like me." He pointed to his turban. "They're racist?" "I don't know what you want to call it, but I just don't want to spend the afternoon stuck in there while they try to convert me again. Last time I didn't even get to take a lunch break, and I'm really hungry today, so you're on your own," he said as he finished removing my luggage. "Like I said, small town, very friendly. I'm sure you'll have no problem finding the place." "Well, I personally respect the Islamic religion." I chased him as he walked back around to the driver's side door and pulled it open. "I'll even buy you lunch. How's that?" "Nope. Therapist said I need to start defining my boundaries or people are going to walk all over me for the rest of my life." He slammed the door and pressed the lock down. "Enjoy your stay in Tiny Christmas. I'm sure you'll have a wonderful time." With that, he and his Nissan Altima pulled out of the lot. "Wait! You can't be serious!" "And I'm a Sikh, you asshole!" he called back as he sped away. I stood there, shivering in the cold, confused and becoming increasingly angry at my predicament. "No, you're the asshole," I grumbled as I grabbed my luggage and resigned myself to walking into town. As I'd mentioned before, I was basically left to fend for myself in an abandoned wasteland. A beautiful young woman such as myself should not have to subject herself to such a dangerous situation. I pushed through the dystopian scenery with a confident stride, preparing myself for whatever unsavory situation lay ahead of me. However, when I finally rounded the last warehouse, I was not prepared for what I saw. Ahead of me, across a set of train tracks, lay the most adorable little downtown I'd ever laid my eyes on. As I walked onward, the air became filled with the scent of pine, cinnamon, and roasted chestnuts. The streets were packed with happy-looking townsfolk, each one going out of their way to say hello as I passed. And Ajit was right. There was a farmer's market. As nice as this all was, I have to admit I was a little uncomfortable with the level of friendliness and Christmas I was experiencing. I felt a bit of guilt well up inside me for not immediately being drawn into the merriness. I managed to brush it off quickly, though. I wasn't wrong. They were the ones that were wrong. As I slowly became increasingly annoyed at the pleasantries, I happened upon a coffee shop. "Welcome to Christmas coffee," an overweight elderly woman hollered in an alarmingly cheery tone as the door jingled closed behind me. "Would you be able to point me in the direction of 616 Pine Street? I am an unemployed graphic designer with no chit-chat skills." "Oh, I know who you are. You're the new window display coordinator from the big city." "Well, yes, and I'm running late." "Oh, sweetie, you look just about chilled to the bone. Did some ethnic cab driver refuse to take you the whole way?" she asked. I wondered how common of a thing that was. "Here you go." She poured a cup of coffee and slid it to me. "Free coffee, on the house. I'm Amanda, by the way." I took the coffee, avoiding her outstretched arm. "That's really nice of you. I'll be sure to stop back when I'm settled, but I'm running late right now, so..." Yeah, I was never coming back. "Oh, right. 616 Pine, was it? Make a left, then it's 2 blocks down. You couldn't even miss it if you wanted to." I thanked her and sped out the door before she could continue to waste my time. I took a sip of the coffee as I walked out into the holiday pandemonium and stopped dead as the warmth hit my tongue. This was the best cup of coffee I'd ever had in my entire life. It was rich and full-bodied with notes of cinnamon, allspice, and honey. It brought back a flood of childhood memories. Drinking hot chocolate after school as my mother brushed the snow out of my hair. Watching movies huddled by the fire. My mother's warmth as she rocked me to sleep. God, I missed her. If only, I thought, I could have something like that again in a real, non-coffee-based sense. Wait, what was I thinking? I am a powerful, competent, unemployed graphic designer. I'd never wish for a family, I convinced myself, brushing the tears from my eyes. I went to take another sip of coffee, but I was beginning to feel nauseous, so instead I dropped it in the next available garbage can. Amanda was right. This place was hard to miss. 2 blocks down was almost a full mile away, and basically in the woods. The quaint Tudor with 616 scrolled across the door was the only building on the entire street. As I walked up the driveway, I realized how eerily quiet it had become. I hadn't seen a single car pass me in the last half a mile. I shivered as the wind whipped up. This was the perfect place for an unsuspecting young woman to be raped and murdered. I was all alone. No, wait. I was being watched. "Well, hello there, Rachel!" I jumped as the door of the house popped open to reveal a smiling middle-aged man in a suit. Oh, hi. I tried to collect myself. "You must be..." "Correct. I'm Jake from the agency. So glad you were able to find your way here. I was getting a little worried that you hadn't been able to find a ride into town." "Funny you should say that. Anyway, this is the place." He cut me off, holding the door open, beckoning me inside. The interior, despite having a certain charm, was covered in a layer of dust and white sheets. The air had a musty quality that signaled that this place had been long forgotten. I sighed. I do not like cleaning. "As mentioned earlier," he continued, "it's $250 a month and you're responsible for paying all utilities as well as any yard work or snow removal that needs to be done. Also, I think there are Christmas lights in the basement, so you won't even need to buy any to decorate." "I won't be needing them, but thank you. I just want to settle in." "Oh." He seemed crushed. "Well, they're in there in case you change your mind. It would probably go a long way to making this place feel like home." Thanks. How long has it been vacant?" I slid my fingers through the dust on the fireplace mantel and almost gagged at the many years of dead skin cells. "About 5 years, I think." "That's... why so long?" "I couldn't really tell you. I'm just a real estate agent. I don't own it or anything," he shrugged. "Oh. Well, I mean, if I had to guess, maybe it was the murders." "Murders?" I parroted. "See, I knew I was going to be raped and killed. Sorry, I misspoke. Disappearances is what I mean. It's not really murder without a body," Jake said matter-of-factly. "But anyway, that was a long time ago, and I heard that tenant was, really into meth, so it was likely drug-related." "Wait, didn't you say..." "Anyway, here are the keys." He handed them to me while also turning the doorknob. "You should be good to go. Have a wonderful life in Tiny Christmas." And with that, he was already halfway down the walk. Murders? I had an unremarkable first night despite wondering just how many disappearances Jake had accidentally inferred. I tried not to concentrate on it too much. I was starting my new job the next morning, after all. Holidays and More occupied the largest building in town. It was 2 floors of highly polished marble and glass. The first floor held the perfect area for a window display, but was currently empty. This will be my canvas, I thought. I put my hand up to the glass wistfully, only to have it slapped from the other side of the glass by a burly man with a beard. I jumped back and he let out a chuckle and motioned me to come inside. "I'm Mr. Santon, the general manager," the burly man explained, giving me a firm handshake. "Great to meet you in person. Thanks so much for the job. We're just so pleased you accepted it. The entire board was unanimous in the decision to hire you. Your plan for a Christmas display that gets us back to our roots is genius." Before I could finish, he pulled me in for a hug.
Say no more, Ms. Adler. We're just so happy we can add you, another true believer of the magic of Christmas, to our wonderful family, he said while patting me on the back. I recoiled slightly and he seemed to catch my discomfort and let me go. Sorry, I just love Christmas so much I get carried away sometimes. I should probably get to work, right? I deflected. Oh, of course. There's only 2 weeks till the big reveal after all. I'm sure every second counts. Mr. Santon led me over to my workspace and introduced me to my assistant, Tom Thompson, a tall and slightly too handsome man in a red vest. I felt uncomfortable for looking at him for too long, like I might, blush if I did. You know, Tom, you could take notes from Ms. Adler here, Mr. Santon said before leaving. Up your holiday game a little and maybe you'll be the next one promoted. Tom looked towards me and let out a little sigh. Yes, sir. On that first day, we spent most of our time going through boxes, taking inventory of what supplies the store already had so I'd know what we would need to buy. So, I broke the silence, Mr. Santan wants you to up your holiday game, eh? Yeah, I guess he's noticed I haven't been my normal, cheery self for the last couple of years. He seemed as surprised by that timeline as I did. That's a long time to not be happy. Like I'd know what happy was. I was a weirdly employed graphic designer caught in what was increasingly feeling like a low-budget Christmas movie. I guess so. I just haven't been myself since my wife died. Oh, he was single and not even the divorced kind. Widowed. The good kind of single. I stopped going through the box of Christmas lights. My hands were shaking. Yeah, it was really tragic. She hit a deer. He was going on about his dead wife, but all I could concentrate on was my own heartbeat as it began to speed up. Why did I care if this guy was single? What was happening to me? I concentrated on regaining my composure. I just needed to take it easy. This had been a big move, a huge change, and I'd lost my bearings. It was perfectly reasonable that I would feel confused and even want to fit in. Things would get less weird once I was used to my surroundings. And then when we took her off life support, oh God, he was still going. I just don't think I'll ever really love anyone again, you know? I get it, but you're young. You'll meet someone again when you're ready, I tried to console. He blushed slightly. You're a really good listener, you know? Hey, would you like to come over for dinner on Sunday? We make a big meal after church, so it's always nice to have some extra company. Oh, no. I don't want to impose. We don't really know each other, and please, I think of it as me repaying you for your kindness for letting me dump all my problems on you like this, he begged. Well, when you put it that way, sure. After a relatively uneventful week, I awoke from a particularly weird nightmare at 3 a.m. Saturday morning to the sound of talking. Frustrated and groggy, I did what any good New Yorker would. I pushed the window open with a level of violence that this house had probably never seen and leaned out into the dark. Shut the fuck up or I'll fucking come down there and murder you! I yelled, then slammed the window shut and lay back down. It was quiet for a minute, but then... Was that chanting? By that point, my complete consciousness had returned, and I realized that I was no longer in an apartment. I was in a house. I was in a completely isolated house. No one should be outside. I lay there in silence, trying to get a grasp on what I was hearing. Chanting? Crying? Maybe it was a wild animal, I thought. I'd heard foxes kind of sound like people. Honestly, I didn't want it to be people or animals. Both seemed like they could be dangerous, and for the first time since the day I'd moved in, I considered what the word disappearances could possibly mean. After what may have been hours, the strange noises dissipated, but I did not sleep for the rest of the night. In the morning, I decided maybe I would put up those Christmas lights.
The house had no exterior lighting at all, and seeing as it had sat unoccupied, there was a chance someone could still think it was vacant and try to break in, if the noises I'd heard were people anyway. If it was foxes or wolves or something, the light should deter them too. Despite being opposed to my core beliefs, I'd do it for my safety. I found a box with one whole strand of lights in it in the basement, just enough to do the awning out front. I figured it was better than nothing, and it also meant I didn't have to spend all day putting them up, so win-win. There was, however, another box in the basement. I'd thought it was more Christmas decorations originally, since there was a piece of garland at the top, but when I brought it upstairs I realized that what I'd really found was a gun. A shotgun of some sort, to be more specific. Along with it was a little box with just a few bullets in it. 7. I counted. I'd never really handled a gun before, and felt conflicted about realizing that it had been in the house with me for the last week. Whose was it, and why would they leave it anyway? Shit, for all I knew, all houses in Iowa came with guns. After some careful contemplation and YouTube videos, I decided to keep it by the door, loaded, in case I did end up running into whatever I had heard the night prior. When I heard the noises again that night, I at least managed to convince myself I could protect myself, and got the smallest bit of sleep. By the time Tom came to pick me up on Sunday, I was already exhausted and a little jumpy. "You look tired, are you okay?" he asked as I fastened my seatbelt. His genuine concern made my heart feel all warm for some reason. "Yeah, just, insomnia. I used to have that real bad when Joanne first died. It's hard being in that house all alone, huh?" "Not really, why would it be hard?" "I just guess I find being alone really difficult. Everyone needs someone to hold at night," he informed me. Was he suggesting he wanted to hold me at night? We arrived at his parents' lovely little colonial only a few minutes later. I may have neglected to say this, but he'd been living with his family since his wife died. I thought it was a little weird, but I also knew grief could really mess up a person, so it was better I didn't judge. Anyway, the house was all decked out in a literal ton of blinking Christmas lights, outside and in. It was really too distracting and tacky for my taste. His mom and dad hugged me immediately as we entered and thanked me for taking such good care of their son. Did they think we were a couple? Did I want us to be a couple? What? No! We had a nice dinner, and his family told me stories about what Tom was like growing up. After dinner, they wanted to sing Christmas carols, so his mom gathered us around the piano as his father played. I don't know any full carols, but I managed to stumble through all right. We laughed a lot. It was really nice to feel like I was a part of something again. It made me miss my parents terribly. I wanted so much to feel safe and loved like that again. Maybe, I thought, just maybe the Thompsons could be my new family. Maybe this place could be my new something to be a part of. We kissed in my driveway before I got out of the car. He told me he was falling for me. Maybe I was falling for him too. I woke up in a pure panic at 3 a.m. I wasn't even aware of why I was so scared for a minute, until the events of the evening came back to me. Something was terribly wrong with me, and the noises were back. The next week was crunch time. We had to make this display the most wonderful the town had ever seen. We could do it. I knew we could. Tom and I spent most of our waking hours together making sure everything was perfect for the big reveal on Friday night. Well, he spent most of his waking hours. I mean, he was probably sleeping. I was still hearing those weird noises. However, I was beginning to think that living in the country just meant hearing unexplained sounds at night. It was nothing to worry about, and I had that gun, just in case, which I decided to leave by my front door indefinitely. Plus, Tom and I were considering moving in together, so he would be able to protect me. Everything was okay. Everything was better than expected. Friday went wonderfully. Mr. Santon praised us both and offered me a permanent position, which I gladly accepted. I invited Tom over that evening to celebrate. "So, are you going back to New York City for Christmas?" he asked me as we cuddled on the couch. Christmas was just 5 days away, wasn't it? Nah, I'm just gonna get some Chinese food and watch movies. That sounds really sad, Rachel. You should come over to my house. We always decorate our tree on Christmas Eve, then we do presents in the morning. You can sleep over, it'll be fun, he suggested. My family loves you, so I'm sure they'd be happy to have you. That sounds really nice, but actually I think I just want to take it easy. Oh. His expression fell. No, it's not like that, but I needed to be honest with the man I loved. I've been lying to you. I'm not... There was that chanting again. Lying? He asked, but then saw the fear on his face. What's wrong? Do you hear that? What is that? I said in a whisper, my voice shaking. Tom listened for a second. The singing? That's carolers, isn't it? I held my breath to try to ascertain what I was hearing. It was getting closer this time. Tom was right. It was people singing. Carolers, I breathed. Yep, the weekend before Christmas they go out and sing at people's houses. Didn't you have that in New York? I shook my head. Had this been what I was hearing the whole time? Carolers practicing somewhere? It sounds like they're right outside. I jumped as the doorbell rang, but convinced myself it was okay to answer it. Outside were 7 of the townsfolk, decked out in Christmassy attire. As soon as they saw me, they began to sing. I wasn't familiar with the song, but it was just so beautiful that tears started coming to my eyes. Here I'd been all worked up about people singing Christmas songs. This wasn't New York City. Nothing was going to try to hurt me here. No one had been anything other than kind to me. I stood in the doorway listening for a long time, just taking in the joy. I let the New Yorker part of me fade. It was okay now. I was okay. Maybe I should go get some money for them or something, I thought. That was the least I could do for this kind of spiritual awakening, right? I was about to turn around to find my purse when something stopped me. I stopped me. What the fuck was I doing? I was a savvy fucking New Yorker. I didn't need this dumb shit. This wasn't even what I wanted at all. What was I even doing with this boring, sad guy? I didn't even like men, and I hated Christmas carols. Hey, can you guys... That's enough. Can you stop now? I pleaded. Really, please stop. No one seemed to hear me. I felt a deep primal fear rise up in my stomach. I needed to lie down or something. I needed them to stop singing already. Tom, can you... I turned around just in time to see Tom lunge at me with a weird-looking knife. Instinctively, I dodged and pushed him to the ground. I am a New Yorker who knows how to defend myself. I grabbed the shotgun. Aww, the carolers grumbled in unison. What the fuck is going on here? I spat, clenching my weapon tightly. You ruined everything, that's what, one of them moaned. I pointed my gun at the small crowd. Are you trying to disappear me? Is that what this is? You know, Tom, if you hadn't waited so long, one of them began. Tom was now sulking on the ground behind me. I was waving the gun wildly between him and the carolers now. I just wanted it to be perfect. I'm sorry, guys, Tom shrugged. She's gonna taste like shit now. Adrenaline fucks everything up, another said. Will someone please tell me what's going on? I shouted. Tell me or I kill every one of you. Tom sighed. We were just trying to teach you the true meaning of Christmas. By killing me? Of course not. Think of all the love we showed you these past couple of weeks. That's the true meaning of Christmas. I recognized this one. It was the woman from the cafe. We know you felt it. We could tell. Felt it? This isn't me. What did you do? Have you been putting something in my food? Aw, sweetie, don't be so paranoid. Everything we gave you was simply made with love. Something you've been sorely lacking, Amanda explained. Well, that and just a teensy tiny bit of LSD. The others nodded in agreement. You fucking dosed me with LSD? What we did, Rachel, was give you the best 2 weeks of your life. We even got you back in touch with your religion, said Mr. Santon. My what? Now you can die happily, Tom chimed in, now standing over me with that knife, smiling manically. I'm Jewish, you assholes! I screamed and shot a bullet into Tom's confused-looking face. His body thudded to the floor. Oh, man.
How are we going to explain this to everyone? They whined as I turned my gun back to them. Can we even sacrifice a Jew? You're not sacrificing anyone. If you try, I'll blow all your goddamn brains out, I threatened, holding the shotgun mere inches from them. But they ignored my warning and continued discussing my murder like I wasn't even there. Fucking rude townies. It's not ideal, but where are we going to find a Christian this close to the ceremony? Santon explained. A Jew is probably better than nothing, even if she is all upset and will probably taste like sadness. Hey, I bet I taste just fine. What was I saying? I did probably taste like sadness, but that wasn't the point. They were trying to kill me. I knew if I wanted to survive the night and ever see my actual home again, I was going to have to stand my ground and take those fuckers out then and there. I broke their disagreement with a single shot, fired directly into the chest of the weirdo closest to me. He fell to the ground in a motionless heap. That was finally the motivation the rest needed to actually come at me, but I was the one with the gun. What? You're not even going to try to rape me first? I shouted as I fired mercilessly into them. Turns out it isn't actually that hard to shoot people when they're that close to you. I don't know if I killed them all, but I certainly shot them enough to make it so they'd have a hard time chasing me if they survive. I ran as far away as I could before calling you. I don't know if others are coming for me, but I'll be ready if they do. I would have called the police, but I'm sure they're in on it. You were right. That town is crazy. Ajit let out a sigh. How many times, he wondered, was he going to help people flee from a crime scene? This couldn't be worth the money. He'd be better off working for one of those takeout services. Yeah, he was going to sign up once he got home. No more transporting crazy people, just transporting food to crazy people. Wait, weren't there 8 of them total? He asked, hoping this didn't set her off. Didn't you say that gun only had 7 bullets? Doesn't that mean you missed one? Rachel thought for a second. Nope, she'd definitely shot 8 cultists. She'd counted. I guess you could call it a Hanukkah miracle. She giggled. Ajit let out a fake laugh, not sure what she meant. So, airport then? Yeah, please. Santa Letters by Morgan Moore. Every year, millions of children send letters to Santa Claus expressing their wishes of what they hope will be under their tree come Christmas Day. But what if somebody used those letters for a not-so-joyful purpose? It has happened, and the following is purported to be the true account of those events. This is the case of the Circleville Santa Letter Murders. In 1978, the citizens of the small Ohio town of Circleville were beginning their Christmas season like any other, planning the December holiday while eating Thanksgiving dinner, making travel arrangements, and all the other hullabaloo that comes with the impending season. While the adults were occupied, the children of Circleville were planning as well, once more taking up the job of writing letters to inform Old St. Nicholas of their Yuletide desires. Even the local schools were caught up in the fun, setting up small deposit mailboxes for the kids to place their letters in. All was well in Circleville as December came and Christmas magic filled the air even more than it already had throughout November. Everything was peace and joy. Unfortunately, that was all about to change. In the early morning of December 7th, 10-year-old Dylan Jones was delivering papers for the Circleville Herald, like he always did. When he reached the house of Joe and April Robinson, he was about to be greeted with a horrendous sight. Jones went around back to deliver the paper as he always did when he discovered the mutilated body of 5-year-old Mary Kate Robinson, a letter to Santa Claus nailed to her forehead. The boy screamed so loud that almost the entire neighborhood was jarred awake and came rushing to the scene. Police questioned the family, friends, teachers, everybody within the small community to try to figure out any clues and leads as to who may have committed this horrible crime, but no answers emerged. Unfortunately for the town, it was not the end of this tragedy.
On December 12th, around 12 o'clock in the afternoon, 8-year-old Michael Stolings was on his way to the park to meet up with a group of friends. At 2 o'clock, his friends called Michael's house and informed his parents that he had never showed up. Immediately, the Stallings phoned the police, worried about their son, the fate of the Robinson girl foremost in their minds. It wasn't long before police found Michael, much like Mary Kate Robinson, dead, with his body mutilated, and a letter to Santa Claus nailed to his forehead. The next day, Sheriff Patrick O'Kyle held a press conference in which he vowed to put a stop to this chaos. Curfews were put in place to make sure children of all ages were home by 5 o'clock at night, and the youngsters were also advised to travel in groups. Soon, things looked to be improving, and a week went by without anything happening. That was soon to change. December 12th was another quiet day. Fred and Darlene Brooks headed out for a long overdue date night, leaving 15-year-old Tanya Weiskup in charge of their children. The pair returned at close to midnight to find their home bathed in darkness. Upon entering the house, the two noticed a smell they later said reminded them of rotting meat. They didn't think much of it, as they had recently been battling with raccoons getting stuck in the attic and dying. Tired and tipsy, the Brooks went to bed, assuming that their babysitter was down in the basement asleep, spending the night, as she tended to do when she had school the next day. When they awakened the following morning, the couple went downstairs to check on Tanya and see if she had indeed stayed overnight. What they discovered was nothing short of a bloodbath. Their children, John, Laura, and Victoria, were all dead, letters nailed to their foreheads. But this time, there was a chilling new twist. A limb from each child was placed under the small Christmas tree set up in the basement. As for Tanya, she lay discarded on the floor, cut from neck to groin, and left to bleed out. Later that day, the city announced a new curfew for all residents, stating everyone in town must be home and have their businesses closed by 4 p.m. Sheriff O'Kyle also advised residents take extra precautions to keep their homes locked and defended. The city became a ghost town come 4 o'clock. The chimes of clocks that rang the curfew hour ushered in eerie quiet. December 22nd and 23rd came and went with no incidents, but the town remained firmly on guard. The morning of December 24th came with no surprises as well. It was a dreary winter day, the gloom and holiday cheer mixing together like cold and warm fronts. Circleville had started to loosen up slightly, something not hard to do considering it was Christmas Eve. The curfew was still in effect, but that seemed to almost add to the magic of the holiday as families stayed bundled in together, celebrating in warm homes that stood in contrast to the cold outside. Night came and the hours drifted along. It seemed that perhaps these terrible crimes were at an end. Christmas morning came and the police who had stood guard in the city streets throughout the night started to head back to the station, ready to go home to their own families to celebrate. But before anybody could leave, a call came in. Somehow, the killer had struck again, right under their noses, twice. The first victim was 10-year-old Jackson Devins, who was found dead in his bedroom by his parents, his window pried open. At the same time, police also discovered the body of 6-year-old Addison Ferguson, who was found in a shed in her family's backyard. This sent the town over the edge into a full-blown frenzy. Who was responsible for all these deaths? How could anybody have broken into the homes and committed the crimes without being caught? Who was next? Police set up barricades to close off the town and began a city-wide manhunt, joined by the town's residents. All day they searched, and the next day, and the next. For a solid week they searched, but no leads arose, and no culprit was found. The new year came, and it seemed that, finally, there was peace. No murders had been committed since Christmas, and law enforcement officials theorized that there would be no more incidents since the season was over. On January 10th, Circleville held a citywide memorial service in honor of the victims, and has held a similar service every Christmas Eve since. These murders left many questions, all starting with who the murderer was. Upon reflection, they stated that they believed the murderer, due to the use of the letters the children wrote to Santa Claus, had to work for either the postal service or the public school. As such, the police conducted mass interviews for all post office and school employees. While everyone interviewed seemed on edge, nobody stood out as being a psychopathic killer. As the weeks rolled on, the case began to go cold. Without conclusive evidence to form any leads, the city and police made the controversial decision to stop the investigation. 1979 continued on, the tragedy still hanging over the town of Circleville like the specter of death. People slowly started to return to what they would call a normal life, with only hushed whispers of the Santa letter murders remaining. Months went by, and soon it was November. The Christmas spirit began to grow in the town once more, but it was tempered by fears of a new murder spree possibly arising. In preparation, Circleville schools announced that they would not put up letterboxes for kids this year, as a safety precaution. The post office took action as well, stating that any letters addressed to Santa Claus would go straight to the police for protection. Everything that the town could think of they implemented, hoping to avoid another year of mayhem. December 1979 began and ended with no murders. This left everyone baffled. Why did the killer not strike again? What was it about this year compared to last to make him, or her, not lash out? Perhaps the crimes would be nothing more than a freak event, an unsolved mystery like so many others. That feeling continued into the next year, and the next, and on, and on. To this day, nobody knows who could have been behind the murders. Christmas in Circleville was never quite the same, but the years dulled the fear somewhat, and the police allowed the post office to start accepting letters to Santa Claus once more, but did not allow the school to reopen their drop box. The same question always pops up. Who did it? While law enforcement never did name a suspect or conduct any arrests, O'Kyle later said that he had a theory of the murderer's identity. He suspected that elementary school teacher Linda Morrison was the killer after discovering her dead from suicide in January of 1980. His reasoning was based on the fact that she was the one responsible for handing the letters to the post office in 1978. It was his belief that she made photocopies of the letters before delivering them. As for how she would have selected her victims, O'Kyle claimed that she did so based on which children in the school were receiving discipline for bad behavior. However, there was no concrete evidence. Perhaps it was Morrison, trying to enact a form of discipline on the children who acted out and the parents who raised their children to act as such. Though, perhaps it was a disgruntled post office employee. Maybe it was somebody else who worked at one of the schools. Some theories suggest it was O'Kyle himself or another person within law enforcement. Doubtless, no one will ever know for sure. All that is known is that the fear lingers in the cool, crisp winter air that one day the devilish deliverer will once again return, bringing Christmas terror to Circleville. Babes in Terrorland by Morgan Moore. As with many holiday seasons before it, parents and children flocked to Barron's toy store in the village of Green Seas. In the middle of the crowd was Justin Barron, a 14-year-old boy with an apron featuring a hand-sewn version of the store's logo in the middle. Justin was staying with his grandmother, the owner of the store, for the holidays while his parents were away on a business trip. He was enlisted to lend a hand almost immediately upon his arrival, with it being the store's busiest time of year. Justin could never understand how she managed it all on her own, but she had been doing it ever since his grandfather died a few years ago, and was managing it successfully, somehow. Justin moved around the store as best he could, seeing how crowded the small store was and all. The building itself was an old brownstone, with the store situated on the ground floor and Mrs. Barron's home on the second. The store could become a claustrophobic nightmare when business was booming, but he managed stocking the shelves and helping out customers as best he could. By the time 3 o'clock came around, Justin was spent and was ready for the day to be over so he could finally get some rest. Those thoughts were interrupted when he laid eyes on Kathy Wilcox. He had known her since 4th grade and had a crush on her that never faded. Justin always wanted to tell her how he felt, but he could never muster up the courage to do it. Somehow he could picture everything he wanted to say, but any time he saw her, it all vanished. Justin felt himself beginning to melt as he kept looking at her. His face turned bright red, and immediately Justin began to do some busy work around the area, trying to disguise the fact that he had been staring at her. Justin's heart beat faster and faster as if somebody was pounding away on a drum, but that came to an immediate halt when he felt a gentle tap on his shoulder. He turned around and saw Kathy there. "Hi, Justin," Kathy said sweetly. "Hi, Kathy," Justin stammered, his face feeling like it was on fire. Kathy gave him an intimate smile, her blue eyes seeming to shimmer to Justin. "Mind if I ask you a question?" Uh-oh, Justin thought. She's gonna chew me out for looking at her, and in the middle of the store, too. Everybody's gonna think I'm some perv. "Sure," Justin responded after a brief pause. "Could you help me and my sister real quick?" What a relief, Justin thought. "Oh, yeah, for sure. What do you guys need?" he asked. She then began to walk away down an aisle. Justin followed close behind her. "My sister found something she wants, but I can't reach it, and neither can she. I saw you and thought I'd ask if you could bring it down for me since you're so tall and all," Kathy explained. "Oh, yeah, I should be able to get it for you," Justin replied with a smile. Kathy returned the smile. "Man, she's so cute," Justin thought, as they kept walking beside one another. The two eventually got to their location and joined Kathy's sister, Janet. Upon seeing Justin in the apron identifying him as a store employee, Janet pointed upwards toward the top of the shelf she was standing at. "That one, please," Janet asked Justin. Justin looked up to where the child pointed and saw a clown doll. The doll had been in the store ever since he could remember. It had a wooden head and hands and was dressed in a hand-sewn outfit colored silver and blue. A jester hat adorned its head, bells dangling down playfully. Justin had always thought it looked creepy, and other people must have thought the same, as the doll had been around the store ever since he was a child. But maybe, finally, someone had found the doll appealing and wanted to give it a home. Justin smiled and reached up, just barely able to get the doll. He got a grip on it and brought it down, handing it gently to the little girl. "Here you go," Justin said. Janet smiled as she held and stared at the doll. Kathy turned to Justin and gave him a big smile. He returned it in kind. "I want him," Janet responded energetically as she held the clown doll up to the two. "How much is it?" Kathy asked Justin. "I'm not sure. It doesn't look like it has a tag on it." "Let's ask my grandma," Justin said. They arrived at the register to find Justin's grandmother smiling at the three. "There you are, Justin. What cute friends you have there," she said. Kathy blushed lightly at the comment. "Hey, Grandma, how much is this? There's no tag on it or even a sign on the shelf it was on." His grandmother's smile turned to a slight frown. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. That doll isn't for sale. I only keep it on the shelf for decoration," she explained as sweetly as possible. "But I want it," Janet told her. "Are you sure you're not able to sell it?" Kathy asked. "Unfortunately, I am, dear. My husband made the doll many years ago for Justin's mother, and it just has too much sentimental value for me to sell it. It's been watching over the store for years," Justin's grandma explained to the three. Janet frowned, tears starting to well up. Justin smiled a little bit at the two and at his grandma. "It's all right, I'll put him back," Justin said. He then made a motion with his head for Kathy and Janet to follow him. The three of them made their way back to the aisle. Janet looked utterly devastated that she couldn't have the doll, and Kathy looked equally saddened for her sister. Once they got back to the aisle, Justin put the doll back up. He then turned to Kathy with a small grin. She tilted her head in confusion. "What is it? Why are you grinning like that?" she asked. "Because I know of a way to get that doll for Janet," he explained. Janet's face brightened up at once. "Really? How?" Justin moved in a bit closer to Kathy so that he could talk to her in semi-privacy. Janet frowned when she realized what was going on. My grandma is going to go out to a party tonight and I'll be alone for hours. Come on by around 8 and I'll let you in. We can get the doll then, he explained to her. But she'll notice, won't she? Kathy asked. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Just be here by 8. Later that night, Justin made his way downstairs to the store and opened the front door to find Kathy and Janet standing there. Justin frowned a tiny bit as the two girls made their way inside. Why'd you bring your sister? He asked, doing his best to hide his disappointment that it wasn't just Kathy. She wanted to come and I couldn't get her to stay home without spilling the beans. I told my parents I was going out with friends and she threatened to tell them what I was really doing, Kathy explained. I mean, it isn't entirely untrue. You are hanging out with a friend, Justin said with a small smile. I'm going, Janet blurted out and ran towards the aisle with the doll. So, how are you going to explain this to your grandma? Kathy asked as she walked past a display of a toy war scene. Oh, I'm going to tell her I ordered a pizza and just forgot to lock the door on my way back up. I'll take some money out of the register and hide a few other toys, maybe knock some displays over and make it look like somebody broke in and robbed the place, he explained. That's pretty clever. Mean, but clever, she responded as she stopped by the register, Justin stopping in front of her. Hey. What can I say? Justin said. Kathy smiled a bit as she fiddled with some small toys by the register. She looked around, then returned her gaze to Justin. Why are you doing this for us? Why are you risking getting into so much trouble? His mind raced at 1,000,000 miles an hour, trying to figure out how to explain why he was so willing to help her sister out. No, help her out. Before he could give it any more thought, he blurted out his response. It's because I like you. I've always liked you. I think you're sweet and cute, and I just wanted to help because I like you and I thought maybe you'd like me back if I did it. He gasped for breath. Justin closed his eyes and took several deep breaths, eventually regaining control of his breathing. After a few brief minutes, he opened his eyes, finding that Kathy was staring at him, her mouth dropped open some, and her eyes wide. Dread filled Justin, his heart beating harder and harder. Oh no, she's gonna leave and never speak to me again and tell everybody I'm a loser and a freak. But she surprised him by smiling at him, warmly and widely. Justin slowly smiled back. They brought their faces close to one another, only a hair's breadth apart. The scream that ripped through the air put an end to that. Janet! Kathy called out and rushed toward the location the scream emanated from, Justin following in her wake. The duo arrived to find Janet, laying on the floor screaming and crying in agony, her eye sockets bleeding profusely. As for the former resident of those yawning black holes, they were in the hands of the clown doll. The toy turned its head and looked at them. Justin and Kathy bolted from the aisle, the clown doll right behind them. As they ran down the aisles, Kathy shrieked as the other toys began to spring from the shelves and joined the hunt. Stuffed bears and lions pawed at them with vicious claws that sprang from their plush paws as metal model cars pelted down on the teens like rain, leaving bruises and cuts. Justin managed to grab a baseball bat from a nearby barrel and started swinging away as Kathy grabbed a stick horse and did the same. The two sent toys flying left and right, but more and more came forth. Soon Justin and Kathy found themselves surrounded. They continued to swing away, but soon the terror toys grabbed their weapons and pulled them away, leaving the pair defenseless. Justin and Kathy looked at each other and took hold of each other's hand, ready to accept their doomed fate. The store lights came alive and bathed everything in a warm fluorescent glow, causing the pair to start. "Oh no, look at this mess," the voice of Justin's grandmother rang out. The older woman looked around at all the toys, who now looked back at her. She stopped a few feet away from the rattled teens. "Grandma, what's going on? Why are you home?" Justin spat out in a mix of confusion and anger. "And why did they attack us? And my sister, my God, Janet!" Kathy started but soon stopped as she succumbed to raw grief. The senior shook her head and sighed. "I suppose I should explain. You see, these toys, all of them, They come alive every nightfall. But why? How? Justin demanded. Justin, dear, your grandfather made them that way. Business hasn't been the same for years, not since that damn department store opened up. Then, when we learned your grandpa didn't have long left, he was afraid of what would happen to the store. To me, it was his opinion that without any help the store would have shut down, so he decided to create some help. Your grandfather came across a strange scroll during the war in a bombed-out toy store, a store he swore was filled with screaming, burning toys. You can guess the rest. These toys have been cleaning, stocking, and providing security, as you've seen, here ever since. These wonderful toys, they're loyal and always have been, and always will be. Justin and Kathy were taken aback. They believed it all. After all, how could they not? But something still bothered them. Oh, thank God. We're safe then, Kathy told them. The two smiled as they looked at each other, and then at Justin's grandma. But the smiles faded as they saw that the elder in front of them was grim. Grandma? Justin started with a shaky voice. I'm sorry, love, but you were trespassing. You know I don't like you coming down here at night, to say nothing of your friend here and her sister. The store was closed. Besides, they don't move during the day, but they can still hear. When I left for the party, they told me about your little plan. That's why I came back early. You mean you're going to turn us into the police? Kathy asked. No. Unfortunately for you two, I leave all my security matters up to them. And I believe I know what they'll do with you, she explained. The toy soldiers from the war scene filed in, aiming their guns at the teenagers. Justin and Kathy's faces displayed pure and utter terror. With that, Justin's grandmother left and made her way to the stairs. She looked over at the two again and shook her head and sighed. Then, with a flick of her wrist, she turned off the lights. A stream of sharp bangs filled the store. The Weather Outside is Frightful by Shane Migliavacca. It was the worst blizzard the city had seen in over a decade. In time, the storm would be known as the Christmas Eve blizzard of '73, but tonight, it was just the storm. Patrolwoman Halsey Stone strained her eyes scanning the sidewalk as the radio car crawled down the street. Her partner, Officer Roy Sockerso, at the wheel. This part of the city had been hit hard by the country's current financial stagnation. Decaying buildings, junk piled on the side of the street, broke-down cars left to rot in open lots. For Stone, this was too much like the poverty she'd grown up around. Many of the large buildings were seemingly abandoned, but in truth, whole families lived within their walls, as did the normal cast of junkies, drunks, and other shady characters. An anonymous caller had reported a woman screaming for help. They'd circled the block a few times, but come up with nothing. The blizzard had driven everyone indoors. Between the strong gusts of wind and the visibility being shit, nobody in their right mind would be out here. But here they were, on Christmas Eve no less. Not that either of them had anywhere else to be. Stone had left her family behind when she'd moved to the big city, and her partner was estranged from his wife and daughter. Stone's left hand clasped and unclasped her holster, almost keeping a steady rhythm. Enough, snapped Sockerso. What? With the holster, kid. Shit. She hadn't realized she'd been doing it. She could get lost in thought sometimes. Sorry. This is just a bullshit call, kid. Sure. Stone took off her uniform cap. She smoothed back some of her long blonde hair that obstinately refused to cooperate. What? You think there's something to this call? Probably just some junkie trying to steal a few bucks or some asshole trying to stay warm by raping a... He stopped himself. His face reddened a little. Sorry, kid. Stone adjusted her dirty blonde ponytail. Maybe he was right. How long do you want this to go on? Soccerso said. What, your shitty attitude? No, Okie. Looking for our phantom suspect. God, she hated that. When somebody back at the precinct found out about her family coming from the Ozarks, one of the assholes had started calling her Okie. They'd got it from some old song and it stuck like glue. You got somewhere to be? She said, somehow making it sound like, fuck you. He shot her a look. No. Just think our time could be spent better. She drummed her fingers on the dash. All she wanted to do was bounce Soccerso's head off the dash. The anger was always there, had always been there. Once it scared her. Now, it was a friend. You know what, Okie? I'm gonna make it your call. Do we continue looking? Stone took a deep breath. My choice? No bitching? Your call. Since she'd been a kid, she'd had a feeling. She could always tell when something bad was coming. Stone had that feeling now. Another time around. If there's nothing, we go. Okay, fair enough. Soccerso turned the corner as outside the wind gusted. Stone could feel the car move a little, pushed by the wind. We've been at this dance for almost a month now, kid. I'm supposed to be training you, be your partner. And I know jack and shit about you. That was the way she liked it. There was too much in her past. What's there to know? I'm from Missouri. You should open up more. Hang out with some of us. Why? You guys constantly make fun of me and where I came from. That's just ribbing you. No different than any other rookie. You make it harder on yourself anyway, acting like a brat. Sorry, I'm just not Miss Fun and Games. A woman came out of the blanket of falling snow, running at their car, screaming. There was blood on her hands and jacket. Soccerso swerved the car and ended up in a snowbank. Stone was already undoing her seatbelt. Fuck! You okay, kid? Yeah. The woman came running towards them. Stone started to open the door. Oh God, officer, I'm so sorry. Ma'am, take it easy. Is that your blood? Are you injured? She shook her head. No. The woman was shaking. His blood. Soccerso tried getting his door open, but the snowbank wouldn't give as he slammed the door repeatedly against the packed snow. Stone took the panicked woman towards their car. What's your name, ma'am? Dorothy. It's Dorothy. Okay, Dorothy. I need you to get in the back of the car. Dorothy hesitated. What? Why? You'll be safe until we can get somebody to look at you. Soccerso finally gave up on getting his door to open. Dorothy slid in and sat in the middle of the back seat. A steel mesh separated Dorothy from Soccerso. You'll be safe here. Now can you tell me what happened, Dorothy? Dorothy told her how she'd been cutting through the alleyway on her way home from the corner store when a large man had come out of a nook in the alley and chased after her. When she fell on the icy ground, he grabbed her. Terrified, she pulled a metal nail file from her purse, stuck it into his leg, and made her escape. Dorothy pointed to the alley across the street a little ways back. It was there. Thank you, Dorothy, Stone said. You're very brave. My partner will take care of you until an ambulance arrives. I will? Dorothy looked up at Stone, perhaps sensing what was about to happen. I looked into his eyes, officer. There was nothing inside. Stone tried to reassure her. It's gonna be okay. Kid, don't even think, Soccerso said. She cut him off. Call it in. Get back up. Stone slammed the door shut before he could protest anymore. She took off down the street towards the alley Dorothy had indicated. This was it, that feeling of dread that she'd felt. Her heart felt like it was going to break free from her chest. She'd made it to the alley. He could still be here, nursing his wound, she thought. Ultimately, he wasn't in the alley. But something was. The nail file. He'd pulled it out. Now he'd bleed more and make her job easier. Stone followed the blood down another alley and out to a deserted street. She had never been much of a hunter. Her dad had tried to teach her, but her patience was lacking. He'd seemed so disappointed in her, but those times out in the woods with him, just walking, those were some of her favorite memories of growing up. But now her father was spending another Christmas in prison. She sighed. From somewhere above, Christmas music drifted down. Hark the Herald Angels. The heavy snowfall was quickly covering the blood. Stone came out of the alley. She heard voices and a door close. She spun around, her gun at the ready. A young couple stood there, holding Christmas gifts. A look of shock etched on their faces. Their little dog on a leash yelped at her. The man raised his hands, dropping the gifts. "Have you seen anyone suspicious? Other than me? Maybe bleeding?" The dog continued yelping. The man pulled hard on its leash. "Shut up, Mitzi." Stone wouldn't mind slamming the guy against the wall. "No, officer. I need you both to go back inside. There's a dangerous and wounded man in the vicinity." Stone crossed the street. The trail continued down, past a large abandoned building. Then it stopped. Ahead of her, Stone heard a loud metallic clank, like a metal door or lid closing. She regretted leaving Soccerso behind. No, Stone thought. This is where I show them what I can do. She crouched. Slowly, she peeked around the corner of the building until she had a full view of the small street that lay beyond. There, next to an abandoned theater, was a metal hatch set in the ground. Those led to basements, Soccerso had told her. Stone, gun at the ready, inched towards it. Snow had been brushed off, very recently. And there was a bloody handprint on the hatch. "Got you, bastard," she thought. She pulled a rag from her jacket. There was no way she was taking a chance of fucking up the evidence. Her service pistol ready, Stone pulled on the latch. Locked. Of course. She'd have to find another way in. Then, she heard it. The rustle of wings. Stone looked up. Perched on a rusty metal railing was a large white owl. It stared at her with its large, luminous eyes. Eyes that looked into her. She stared at it, transfixed. Then, it struck her what it was sitting on. The railing of a fire escape. She ran over and discovered the bottom of the escape's ladder was just out of reach. Frantically, she looked around for something she could use to get up there. And there it was, sitting against the far wall of an adjacent building. An old, plastic chair. She carried the chair over, and on tiptoes, she reached and pulled herself up. All that tree climbing as a kid paid off. The fire escape led to a locked second-story metal door. Not far from it was a window set above a narrow ledge. She stepped over the metal railing and onto the ledge. The wind howled. She feared a really strong gust might blow her off her perch. Her feet knocked snow free as she inched towards the window. Finally, she made it. Using the flashlight from her belt, Stone smashed through the glass and climbed through the window into the dark interior. She played the beam of the flashlight over the floor and walls of what had once been an office. The broken glass crumbled underfoot as she made her way through the room. Stone crept into the hallway and soon entered the main theater area. Paint was chipping off the walls. The seats that hadn't been ripped out or defaced in some way were covered in years of dust. She headed towards the stage area. Her snow-covered boots kicked up dust as she moved, leaving wet tracks on the dirty floor. Stone climbed onto the stage. An ugly-looking green couch sat by itself at the center. The curtain pulled shut behind it. She opened the curtain and entered the backstage. Stone's flashlight beam caught a blank white face. She almost pulled her trigger before she realized a mannequin stood before her. She walked past the expressionless figure. "Fuck you, asshole." There was a long, dark hallway that led off the backstage area. Old mattresses were stacked in a haphazard pile, stained with God knows what. A musty smell permeated the air. A large wood wardrobe sat in the middle of the hall, rotting. Stone raised her weapon in her left hand and reached out with her right. She yanked the door open, causing it to fall off in the process. Stone backed up. It was empty. Continuing on, she passed a pile of broken props and raggedy costumes on racks, before arriving at a metal staircase leading to the basement. She headed down, the metal clanking under her boots. The basement hallway was lined with brick and appeared to be in better shape than the walls above. Another foul smell filled the air down here. The smell of something rotten. A mattress lay on the floor. Next to it sat stacks of books and empty soup cans. Someone was living here. Taped to the wall were newspaper clippings and excerpts from books and magazines. All concerning axe murders. Above them, scrawled in blood, read, "The Axeman cometh." Oh, great. He's got a secret identity. At the far end of the room was a metal door. A large rusty chain was wound through the handles and secured with a padlock. Before she could reach the door, something wet hit her face. Stone turned her beam upwards to see multiple severed arms hanging from large strands of butcher's twine. Not thinking, she bolted forward and crashed into the metal doors with all her might. The doors tore from their rusty hinges and crashed to the floor with Stone in tow. She quickly sprung to her feet and swung her flashlight around the new room. Taped to the walls in various sizes were crosses made out of paper. She inspected one of the crosses on the wall closest to her to find it was made from Bible pages. At the far end of the room was some kind of demented altar made primarily of lashed-together bones. A large metal cross stood at its center, surrounded by a multitude of crimson candles which filled the surrounding air with acrid smoke. "I've taken their sin," a deep voice said from behind her. Startled, Stone spun around to see a brute of a man, covered in shoddy, blood-stained clothes, standing in the doorway, cradling an axe in his arms, as if it were a newborn baby. Around his right leg, a rag was tied where he'd been stabbed by Dorothy. "I cut it from their bodies." "You killed them." "Freed them. They died without sin." He walked forward, towards her, with a limp. "Freeze, you motherfucker!" Stone barked, her voice trembling. He stopped in his tracks. "I was chosen." He held out the axe. "It chose me." "Shut up." She didn't want to hear his psycho sales pitch. "Put the axe on the ground and place your hands behind your head." He stared at her as if not comprehending. "I've been to another plane. Ascended. I was sent back to do their work here." "Do it, fucker!" Stone screamed, her anger getting the best of her. He set the axe down, tenderly, putting his hands together behind his head. "Kneel!" He did as he was told, with some effort. She moved forward and kicked the axe away. She noticed before its flight that it was covered in strange symbols. The wind outside sounded like whispers in the air, calling her. "I can't help but notice you're left-handed," he said. This caught her off guard enough that the man was able to lunge at her legs with a pocket knife, catching her in the side of her right leg. The .38 and the flashlight fell from her hands as she instinctively grabbed her wound. Stone retreated as painfully he stood and retrieved his axe. "Do you know what it's like to die the painful death of a million screams in silence every day?" Stone fell against the wall, leaving a trail of blood in her wake. "Then they came to me. Angels. Took my pain. Gave me this axe. God teaches us with pain. That's how we become worthy of his love. Through pain." He limped forward. Stone's head began swimming wildly. "Would you like to meet God?" he asked, raising the axe. She felt the cold metal sticking in her leg. With all her remaining strength and channeled anger, Stone pulled the knife from her wound. The pain was immeasurable. "You first!" Stone screamed. She plunged the blade deep within his breast, causing him to howl in agony. Stone pulled out the blade and brought it down again, and again, and again, until blackness took her. She awoke to find the man in a fetal position, sobbing loudly. Stone crawled forward and found her .38. The man started to slowly rise, using the axe to prop himself up. "Don't you move," Stone said hoarsely. "I could have helped you." He stood fully on shaking legs. I said, "Don't move." She took aim. Her arms felt like rubber. "Cleanse the world of sin." He limped towards her, dragging the axe along the ground. "Stop," she said, her voice breaking. "You see it, don't you? See them? It's in your eyes, in your soul," he said, reaching out for her with a bloody hand. Stone squeezed the trigger, firing a round into his chest and another into his forehead. His brains exited in a geyser of gore. He fell to his knees, the axe clattering to the ground. Then he fell forward, his body shuddered, and lay still. The darkness took her once more. Stone saw her parents playing with her as a child, followed by the great white owl, swooping down from the sky. It landed in a tree, watching her. It spoke to her. "Okie, Okie." "Okie, Okie," Sakurso called from somewhere out in the hall. "Here," she said. Stone wasn't sure if he'd hear her. He stumbled into the room. "Hang on, kid." He put a hand over her wound, pressing tight. "Backup's coming. Stay awake, okay?" She grabbed his arm. "God, my corns are killing me after tracking your damn ass all over town." "I'm dying, and you're bitching about your feet?" "Shut the fuck up. You're not dying. They make 'em tough where you're from, right, Missouri?" She nodded and smiled. "Well, Merry Christmas, Missouri." Satan Claus by Keith Tomlin. December 25th, 1998, 1:45 a.m. Edward burst out of the back door of his house. His foot missed the second step of the concrete stairs, and he went sprawling, landing hard on the neglected wooden deck of his back patio. Gasping for breath, he struggled to his feet, losing one of his slippers. After a few tries, he regained his balance and raced off into the woods that edged his backyard. Burrs and thorns tore at his skin and clothing as he plunged into the darkness. As Edward ran, he heard a loud crash as something large and powerful followed after him. An unearthly roar filled with hate and rage rang through the night. Edward pushed himself harder, charging faster into the forest. After a few minutes of running in a blind panic, Edward felt a sharp pain run from his chest down his arm. He gasped and dropped at the base of a large elm tree. Sobbing, he worked himself into a sitting position, trying to breathe through the pain. He wiped blood from his face, some his, some from his wife. Hearing a branch breaking, Edward tried to push himself up, but the pain in his chest nearly caused him to black out. Fighting unconsciousness, he felt hot breath on his face as he fought to open his eyes. When he did, Edward saw yellow, bloodshot eyes staring into his as the creature snorted, sending its moist, rancid breath into his face. It let out a blood-curdling scream as it reached for him with long arms ending in razor-sharp claws. As the creature tore Edward apart, his last thought was not of the intense pain or the realization that his life was over. It was a question. Is that thing wearing a Santa hat? Edward thought as he passed into darkness. December 24th, 1999, 11:15 a.m. Emily looked incredulously at her 13-year-old brother Tyler. "Satan Claus? Are you fucking serious?" she said. "Well, yeah, I mean, it's real. Well, not real, but they think it's real," Tyler said, trying to gather his thoughts. "So, we're going to summon a pretend demon dressed like Santa Claus to take care of our stepfather?" Emily said with scorn. "Well, sorta," Tyler sighed, taking a deep breath and slowly letting it out. "Okay, so take the legend of Bloody Mary. The story goes that if you look in the mirror and say her name 3 times, she'll appear and start killing people. Now, everyone knows that's not real.
If you're having a sleepover with friends and they dare you to look in the mirror and say her name, you will. You know it's not true and nothing will happen. But, he said excitedly, if it's night and you're alone in the house and you're standing in front of a mirror when the thought crosses your mind to say her name 3 times, will you do it? Without waiting for an answer, Tyler went on. No, you wouldn't. And why not? The logical part of your mind will say, surely it's not real, it's just crazy talk. But on a primal level, you know that if you say her name 3 times, she may appear. This belief is what gives these creatures their power. Tyler paused, slightly out of breath. You are one weird kid, Emily said. Yeah, well, growing up in this house does tend to make one unusual, Tyler replied solemnly. Emily shook her head. Okay, I'm still confused. What creatures are you talking about? Tyler looked Emily in the eyes, something he rarely did with anyone. To be honest, I don't know. I just know they exist. Throughout history, different cultures had legends of horrific creatures that terrorized the common folk. I think that these were all some kind of a supernatural force that draws power from the beliefs and fears of the people. If enough people believe in them, then these ghosts, demons, or whatever can draw strength and life from these beliefs that will actually become these creatures. Wow. I think this is insane, said Emily, speechless. I know, and I accept that, but I need your help. For you, this is a win-win. If you help and it works, we'll be rid of that asshole forever. Tyler looked at Emily, who nodded emphatically. If it doesn't work, then you have something else to make fun of me for. Not that there's any lack of material for that, Tyler said, pointing to the piles of role-playing manuals and superhero comic books stacked around his bedroom. Not for the first time, Emily was amazed at how smart her brother was. Naive and childlike, but also so goddamn smart. She had sworn to herself to do whatever she had to do to make sure that he reaches adulthood without life crushing his soul. She was only a year older than him, but she was a survivor. She could take all the pain and suffering that life and her stepfather could dish out. Tyler, however, was a fragile soul. If this helped him deal with all the bullshit, then she was willing to go along with it. Fuck it, I'm in, she said. Consider it your Christmas present. Well, really? Tyler said, clearly expecting more resistance. Emily continued. Look, this is the most batshit crazy thing I've ever heard, but you're my brother and I'll do anything to support you, so... Satan Claus? Tyler took a few seconds to blink some tears away. Okay, so Satan Claus is an urban legend that's been around for at least 15 years. Basically, it's a story of a department store Santa that was beaten to death by a gang of kids and his wife got her revenge by baking cookies with her blood. She tricked the kids into eating them, which caused her husband to come back from the dead and kill everyone. Tyler finally paused to take a breath. At least 9 times in the last 7 years, there have been a series of gruesome deaths on Christmas Eve, so brutal that the police have suspected it was either the work of a satanic cult or some kind of huge, unidentified wild creature. I disagree. I think it was the legend of Satan Claus that killed them. And that's what I want for dear old Frank, Tyler said, referring to their stepfather. He deserves to die, Emily said in a cold, hard voice. For what he's done to Mom, you, and for what he tried to do. Emily trailed off. Tyler awkwardly reached out and patted her hand. I know. He'll pay for all of it. So, all we need to do is get Frank to eat some cookies? Emily asked. Tyler nodded. What do you need from me? Emily finally asked. December 25th, 1999, 12:36 a.m. Emily rubbed the Band-Aid covering her finger, thinking that only her brother could talk her into using her blood as an ingredient in a cookie recipe. If she had to be honest, she enjoyed cutting her finger a lot more than baking the cookies. The first batch ended up a burned, smoking mess, and she had to mix up and recut a second batch. She shook her head thinking about the things that people do for family.
Emily looked down at her brother, asleep on the couch next to her, and sighed. She loved that crazy little bastard. She turned back towards the large picture window to keep up her vigil on the dark street outside. After a minute or so, the lights from an approaching car lit up the neighboring houses. Emily leaned further over the back of the couch, face pressed against the window, to get a better look. When a familiar car pulled into the driveway of the house across the street, Emily grabbed her brother and shook him awake. "Tyler, Frank just pulled into our driveway," Emily whispered loudly. Tyler sat up, rubbing his eyes, looking around. He asked, "Where's Mrs. Patterson?" "Mrs. Patterson is in bed. It's past midnight," Emily said. Mrs. Patterson was an elderly woman who lived across the street from them and, understanding their volatile family situation, often let the kids spend the night at her house while their mom was working the graveyard shift at the nursing home. "Grab the binoculars and keep your voice down," Emily commanded. Tyler's eyes popped open as he suddenly remembered what they had planned for Frank. He grabbed his cheap pair of binoculars from the coffee table and joined his sister, leaning over the back of the couch. Frank pulled into the snow-covered driveway, his ragged old Ford sliding to a stop, almost hitting the garage door. He opened the car door and stumbled out. Frank was a tall, lean man, what some may call wiry. He had a face that used to be quite handsome, and may still be to some, hidden under the years of hard living and even harder drinking. Frank lived to drink, and spent most evenings complaining about his miserable life to the regulars at Whitey's Tavern, a dive bar a few blocks from his house. He would usually come home shit-faced. Tonight, however, he was well beyond that. One of the bar patrons, a well-to-do businessman that liked to flaunt his success, kept buying drinks for the house. Frank kept drinking, and he kept getting angrier. Frank's past kept rolling around in his head. Why has his life turned out like shit? Why is everyone against him? Why did that bitch of an ex-wife keep hounding him for money to buy gifts for a bunch of ungrateful little shits? Why did his current wife keep picking up extra shifts when she should be home taking care of him? Why do her fucking brats show him no respect in his own goddamn house? Frank shut the car door and made his way up the icy walkway to the front of the house, swaying as he opened up the front door and walked inside. "Hey! Anyone here?" Frank bellowed, slamming the front door. "Where the fuck is my dinner?" Frank listened to the sounds of an empty house as he remembered that his bitch wife was working tonight. Frank mumbled curses under his breath as he walked across the small living room to the kitchen. Seeing a pizza box on the counter, he opened it up and grabbed a slice. Chewing on the cold pizza, he walked over to the fridge and grabbed a beer. He was walking back to the living room when he noticed a plate of cookies with a note under it. Squinting, he picked up the note and read it. "Frank, I know we've not gotten along, but, for Mom's sake, I want to try to fix that. Please accept these cookies as a peace offering. Merry Christmas, Emily," the note said. Frank picked up the plate with the cookies and turned back to the living room. He paused at the end of the counter and dropped the cookies, plate and all, into the trash can. Tyler reached out and grabbed Emily's arm. "He picked up the cookies," he said excitedly, looking through the binoculars. "He's walking... Wait. Oh no. He threw them away," Tyler said quietly, as silent tears began to roll down his face. "Give me those," Emily said as she grabbed up the binoculars. She brought them up to her face and pointed them at the rundown house across the street. Because a particularly violent outburst from Frank last week resulted in the curtain rods being ripped down, she had a good view of the living room and most of the kitchen. Emily focused on Frank, sitting in an armchair, drinking a beer, and watching TV. Emily sighed, lowering the binoculars. "Damn. Oh well, we tried." She turned to her brother, and her heart broke when she looked upon his face, wet with tears. "Hey, don't worry. We'll get through this." Emily reached out and hugged Tyler, who began to sob louder. "Okay, it'll be okay." Emily leaned back and looked Tyler in the eyes. "You know that this wasn't going to actually work, don't you?" Tyler shrugged, wiping at the wetness on his cheek. Emily sighed. "Okay, fine. I still owe you a Christmas present. I'll go over there and try to get the asshat to eat a blood cookie. Even if some creature doesn't rip him a new asshole, it would be fun just watching that. Tyler hugged her tightly. For a few seconds, Emily hugged him back. She then stood up and looked at Tyler. You stay here. I'll be back in a few minutes. Walking away, Emily thought once again, the things you do for family. Emily stood on the front stoop of her house, shivering in her thin jacket. She took a few deep breaths, trying to build up her courage. Damn it, why did I agree to do this? Emily thought. Exhaling, she turned the doorknob and walked inside. Oh, hi Frank, she said as she shut the door. Where the fuck have you been? Frank said without taking his eyes off the TV set. Oh, I'm staying at a friend's house. I just stopped by to pick something up I forgot, Emily answered. Where's your retarded brother? Frank said, still watching TV. Emily ignored the insult. He's staying with them too. Mom knows. Your mom doesn't tell me shit. I never know what the fuck is going on in my own house, Frank said, raising his voice. Oh, I figured she would, Emily said. A silence fell over them, only broken by the muted sound of the television. Did you see the cookies I baked you? Emily asked, hesitantly. Frank tossed an empty bottle across the room. It landed on the bare wooden floor and rolled to a stop next to a table lamp. Get me another beer, Frank said. Emily stood still for a few seconds, trying to keep her temper in check. She then walked to the fridge and grabbed a beer from a half-full six-pack. She paused and grabbed a cookie out of the trash can before moving to the living room. Here's your beer, Emily said, trying to sound cheerful. She sat a beer on the end table next to Frank's prized recliner. Also, here's one of the cookies I made for you, she said, sitting a cookie down next to the bottle of beer. Frank's hand shot out and grabbed her by the arm. He began moving his index finger, lightly tracing circles on the inside of her wrist. He looked up at her, sneering. Emily pulled out of his grip. She glared at Frank, struggling to hold her temper. Look, I'm trying to be nice. I made you some cookies as a peace offering. The least you could do is try one, Emily said through gritted teeth. Frank opened the beer and took a long pull from it. He slammed it down on the end table, smashing the cookie. If you want to be nice to me, he said sarcastically, you could make me a sandwich. After a few moments, Frank looked over and noticed that she was still standing there, staring daggers at him. Look, women are only good for two things, he said. Cooking and fucking. It's your choice. Balling her hands into fists, Emily turned and walked back to the kitchen. After taking a moment to calm herself down, she opened up the fridge and grabbed some bologna and a jar of mayonnaise. Hearing the fridge door open, Frank yelled, Get me another beer, too! Emily ignored him and grabbed a butter knife from the utensil drawer. She slapped the bologna on a piece of bread and smeared a generous portion of mayo on top. Reaching back into the trash can, she grabbed another cookie. She rolled the jar of mayonnaise over the cookie, reducing it to crumbs. Scooping up the crumbs, she tossed them on the sandwich and smashed the second piece of bread on top. She turned around and dropped the plate as she ran into Frank, who had walked up behind her. Taking advantage of her surprise, he reached and pulled her close to him, the alcohol from his breath burning her eyes. I decided that I'm not hungry, which only leaves one option, Frank said. Emily growled with rage, bringing her knee up with all of her might, swinging towards his crotch. Frank laughed as he turned slightly, taking the blow on his upper thigh. Darling, you ain't gonna catch me with that move again. Emily started to reach up towards Frank's face, her fingers curled into claws. Frank's hand shot out and grabbed her by the neck. Stop fighting or I'll crush your fucking throat, he growled as he squeezed her neck. Emily began to panic as Frank squeezed harder. She was swinging her arms wildly, trying to knock his hand loose. Frank wasn't a large guy, but he possessed an unexpected strength. He used that strength to lift her up by the neck and slam her down on the counter. Emily's head hit the formica hard enough to cause her to briefly lose consciousness. She woke up to fingers tugging at the buttons on her shirt. She tried protesting, but it felt like she was moving in slow motion. A slap stung her cheek and threatened to send her back into darkness. Frank pulled his hand back and slapped her again. Little Miss Cocktease, Frank said, leaning over her. As he brought his hand back to hit her again, Something flew by his head. He looked up as a pair of binoculars hit the front door and shattered. "What the?" Frank said as something leaped on him from behind, arms reaching around his face. Frank laughed as he realized who'd attacked him. "It's the little fucking retard coming to rescue his sister," Frank said, grinning like a madman. Frank reached back and grabbed Tyler by the back of the shirt and tossed him into the refrigerator door. Tyler slid down and hit the ground hard. With Frank's hands off her throat, Emily was able to catch her breath. As she coughed and struggled to clear her head, she reached out with fumbling hands, trying to find something, anything to help her. When she felt a cold metal handle, she grabbed it and swung it blindly at Frank. The mayonnaise-covered butter knife slammed into Frank's upper arm, burying itself deep enough to hit bone. As Frank screamed and ripped the knife out of his arm, Emily began rolling around the counter. Hitting the edge, she fell off, landing on the trash can and sending it crashing across the floor. The noise jolted Frank into action, and he leapt forward, trying to grab her ankles as she scrambled across the cracked linoleum onto the cheap, threadbare carpet of the living room. Emily crawled toward the front door but stopped when she looked back and noticed Tyler, who was beginning to stir on the kitchen floor. She tried to yell for her brother, but her bruised and swollen throat could only manage a weak moan. Frank stormed into the living room. As he approached Emily, she cocked her leg back and aimed a kick at his knee. He jumped to the side, avoiding her strike, and pounced on her, pinning her to the carpet. He leaned forward inches from her face and said, in a quiet, rage-filled voice, "Merry Christmas." Frank leaned back and started swinging his fists at Emily's head. She did her best to block the blows, but he kept on swinging, unleashing the rage upon her. After a few moments, he stopped, out of breath, and looked back toward the kitchen. Tyler was standing there, holding something triumphantly in his hand. "Frank, let her go. I'll do it, I swear," Tyler yelled, holding his hand out. Emily looked up, her face already starting to swell, and tried to focus on Tyler. When she saw what he was holding in his hand, a realization hit her like a bucket of cold water. She knew what he was about to do. She knew, and she believed. Emily tried to yell at him to stop, but all she could do was lay there and watch. Frank, looking confused, stood to face the youngster. Tyler held up a cookie for a few seconds and then yelled, "Take this, you son of a bitch!" He then shoved the whole cookie in his mouth and started chewing vigorously. Frank shook his head and said, "You are one fucking weird kid," as he began to move. Tyler stood there, defiantly chewing as Frank closed in on him. Just as Frank crossed over into the kitchen, a loud thud shook the house. At first, Emily thought a car hit their house, but as a thunderous roar pierced the night, she knew that Tyler had been correct. Satan Claus had arrived. Frank, who had his fist raised to strike Tyler, turned and took a few steps toward the door, holding his ears. The screams suddenly stopped. There were a few seconds of silence. Dead silence, where the only sound you could hear was the beating of your own heart. And then the front door exploded. Fragments of wood, glass, and metal shot through the air, revealing a gruesome creature. The creature filled the doorway, ducking down to enter the room. It had a vaguely wolf-like face and large, pointed horns. It wore a tight, dirty red jacket trimmed in white fur on its ape-like torso. It stood on two massive legs that ended in cloven hooves that caused the ground to shake with every step. It had long, wicked claws at the end of its elongated arms. The strangest part was the almost comical, undersized red hat that sat on the creature's head. Frank appeared dazed, dozens of small cuts along his face and arms. He staggered forward as if he were going to push by the creature to leave. The demon looked down at Frank as if amused, then grabbed him by the neck. It raised Frank high and then slammed him to the floor. Emily stumbled to her feet and ran to Tyler, who was slumped against the fridge. The creature roared as it began to tear Frank's chest open. Emily grabbed Tyler by the shoulders and turned toward the back door when a body part, probably a leg, flew across the room and slammed into the wall next to it. She then gathered up Tyler and ran down the hall to her mom's bedroom, the only one with a lock on the door. Emily laid her brother on the floor, then she noticed He was gasping for air. She looked down and saw blood pouring from a wound on his chest where a large piece of wood was protruding. Sobbing, she cradled him in her arms, listening to the blood rattle in his chest with every breath. The house shook as the creature walked down the hall. It stopped in front of the bedroom door and kicked the door off of its hinges. It took 2 long steps and stood over the 2 siblings. Leaning down, it took in a deep breath and seemed to shiver with anticipation. Emily held her brother tight and closed her eyes. The creature reached forward, a single talon waving in the air, teasingly. All of a sudden, the creature stood up straight, whipping its head around like it heard something off in the distance. It turned and bolted out of the room. Emily sat there, in a state of shock, convinced that any moment would bring the creature back. When the phone rang, Emily's heart jumped. She reached with one hand to the nightstand and grabbed the receiver. She tried to say something, but could only produce a weak, raspy grunt. "Hello? Emily? This is Mom." Emily managed to croak out. "Mom?" "Yes, honey, it's Mom. You sound sick. You better go get some sleep. I just wanted to call and thank you for trying to make nice with Frank. I know it's been a hard year, but I think things will get better. It was a nice gesture to bake him some cookies. He doesn't have much of a sweet tooth, so I hope you don't mind that I brought some to work. I've been passing them out in the break room, and they're a huge hit. Everybody just loves them." Emily's mom paused, as loud noises and screams can be heard. "Oh my, something is going on down the hall. I better get off here and see if I can help. You get some rest. Merry Christmas, sweetheart." The phone went dead. Christmas Cranberries by L.F. Falconer. Ronnie was no longer content with pulling the legs off of crickets. That bored him anymore. As did wingless dragonflies and tailless lizards. So today, it was Fluffy, the long-haired tabby with the blue collar that jingled softly with the cat's subtle movements. To protect the birds, Fluffy's owner, Mrs. Kent, from the neighboring house was often known to say. Fluffy was Mrs. Kent's favorite, and Ronnie did not like Mrs. Kent, for Mrs. Kent was mean. Her mouth was always turned down in a frown, and her eyes glinted like a pirate's. She never missed the opportunity to complain to Ronnie's mom when he'd picked the apples from Mrs. Kent's tree off the single branch that overhung the back fence, and she refused to return any balls that accidentally ended up in her yard. Yes, Mrs. Kent was a mean old biddy, so this day, Ronnie thought, when he caught Fluffy trespassing, was to be Fluffy's last. Ronnie's eyes gleamed as he firmly held the writhing cat beneath the water of his wading pool. He imagined the cat to be Mrs. Kent as he kept holding her down, tighter and tighter, until she was quite dead beneath the shallow water. He smiled. A sweet tang like cranberries filled his mouth. He savored the taste as he shoved the wet, dead cat into a garbage bag and stuffed it into the trash can in the alley. For a long time, Ronnie stared at the trash can, reveling in satisfaction, relishing the taste of cranberries. In all of his 6 years of life, he could never remember feeling so good. That was in June. By the 1st of September, just 1 week before his 7th birthday, Ronnie was beginning to hunger with the need to feel good again. He began to crave the cranberries. For his birthday, his father brought home the puppy, a happy 8-week-old lab border collie mix. At his mother's suggestion, the boy named the dog Susie, and within a few days, Susie was fetching the ball Ronnie would toss. Very few were lost to Mrs. Kent's yard anymore. At night, Susie would curl up in her crate at the footboard of Ronnie's bed, and she rarely woke before daylight. In the morning, she would follow Ronnie like a shadow, and wait patiently outside the closed bathroom door until he would let her out in the backyard to tend to her own duties. When Ronnie would come home from school, Susie would brim with joy and exuberance, wagging her entire hindquarters. 4 weeks after Ronnie's birthday, Susie disappeared. Ronnie knew where the dog had gone. Though Susie had done nothing to set Ronnie into a fit of anger, the boy had simply wanted to feel good. He had been hungry. He'd wanted to taste the cranberries. He had taken his father's claw hammer out of the garage. He'd bashed it against Susie's head. He'd bashed again and again, each blow feeding his hunger, filling his mouth with tang until cranberry drool overflowed and dribbled onto his chin. The hunger was sated. He'd tossed the hammer behind the rose bush, unlatched the alley gate, and shoved Susie's little body into a box in Mr. Phipps's trash can at the end of the block. He would be full for a while. Ronnie felt good. Ronnie's mother and father posted the reward flyers around the neighborhood in hopes of inducing the return of the missing pup. 5 days after he'd put them up, Ronnie's dad took the flyers down, even though the lost puppy had not been found. A week before Halloween, Ronnie was blessed with a new sister. His mother had gone to the hospital and came home 2 days later with baby Elizabeth wrapped in her arms. Grandma Rose and Grandpa Sig and Grandpa Paul all came for the Thanksgiving holiday dinner with much fuss and ado over baby Elizabeth. Grandma Rose clicked her favorite photo, so she said, of a smiling Ronnie lovingly holding his new 1-month-old sister in his arms. Little did Grandma Rose know that when she posed the children for that shot, how hungry Ronnie was growing. How Ronnie's bright smile was merely instigated by his inner anticipation and his knowledge of how to feel good, how to taste more cranberries. He tried to fill his hunger at the Thanksgiving feast, but the ones from the can were too sweet. They weren't the same. They did not make him feel good. After dinner, the women gathered in the kitchen for the cleanup, and the men retired to the living room in front of the TV. "So, Ronnie," Grandpa Paul asked as he settled upon the sofa, "what do you want Santa to bring you for Christmas this year?" Ronnie scooted forward in his seat. A baseball bat would be nice. He had no desire for a ball or a glove. A shiny red baseball bat. Red, like cranberries. His grin was as wide as his eyes. It made Grandpa Paul smile. "I always loved baseball as a boy," Grandpa Sig said, loosening his tie. Grandpa Sig always wore a tie. "You never know when you'll need to make a good impression," he always said. Ronnie's dad, Jim, leaned back in his recliner. Santa might not come this year. "Why not, Jimmy?" Grandpa Sig asked. "He's not short of cash, is he?" "No, but sometimes it's just best if he stays away." Ronnie's dad muted the TV and set the remote aside. "Dad, why don't you tell Ronnie about the Santa you knew as a boy?" "Are you sure?" Grandpa Sig ran his tie back and forth through his fingers. "Times are different, and here in America, Santa Claus has changed his M.O. a little." "He's changed his M.O. a lot, Dad. So indulge me and help me teach the boy a little folklore from his heritage. My Ronnie's old enough to know there's more than one Santa in the world." He looked over at his son and winked. "Aren't you, son?" Ronnie sat up proudly. "Yes, I am." And the boy listened in rapt awe as his father's father began the tale. "Well, here in America,
Santa Claus might come accompanied by a red-nosed reindeer, Grandpa Sig intoned. But back where I come from, Santa, or Sammy Claus, as he's known, makes his rounds with Schmutzi. Ronnie giggled at the sound of the name, spoken in his grandfather's residual German accent. Is that a Swiss reindeer? He asked. Grandpa Sig shook his head solemnly. No, Schmutzi is Sammy Claus' evil altar. While Sammy Claus wears a red cloak and a tall red hat, Schmutzi dresses in sooty gray. Sammy Claus has a long white beard, and Schmutzi is black as coal. Schmutzli's face, too, is black as an inkwell, and his eyes glow red as embers in a fire. Sammy Claus leaves treats in the shoes of good little children, while Schmutzli beats the naughty children with his broom. And with those boys and girls who've been truly, truly bad, he sweeps them into his sack and spirits them away deep into the wilderness to be eaten and never seen again. Ronnie stared, wide-eyed. Why are you telling the boy that horrible tale? Grandma Rose asked, coming out of the kitchen with a handful of fresh-washed china for the cabinet. There's nothing wrong with Ronnie knowing the folklore of his heritage, Mom, Jim said. After all, I grew up with it, and look how sane I turned out. Well, I didn't approve of your father telling you those stories then, and I don't approve of you scaring my grandson with them now. It's too late, Jim said, reaching for the TV remote. The tale of Schmultzy has been told. I'm not scared, Grandma, Ronnie lied. After all, this is America. Santa's changed his M.O. Grandpa Sig and Grandpa Paul both laughed. Grandma Rose shook her head and returned to the kitchen. Ronnie stared at the TV. The sound was reinstated, but Ronnie didn't hear it. All that filled his mind was the picture of glowing red eyes on a black face, and the hunger for cranberries faded into the background. When Ronnie relayed the story of Sammy Claus and Schmultzy to his friend Jason at school, Jason just laughed. It's not real, Jason said. There's no such thing as Santa anyway. It's only your parents. And that is what Ronnie wanted to believe. Or at least that in America there was Santa, not Sammy Claus. And certainly no Schmultzy. And maybe he hadn't been that naughty, though he wanted to be. He was craving the cranberries. But it would have to wait. He couldn't take any chances before Christmas. 2 days before Christmas, Ronnie watched, licking the taste of cranberries on his lips as his mother bathed baby Elizabeth in the infant's tub upon the tabletop. Can I help? He tentatively asked. After a moment's consideration, Mother nodded. Of course, Ronnie. She handed the boy the soft washcloth when he stepped close. Just gently wash her body, okay? Mother held Elizabeth securely in the tub. Ronnie rubbed the cloth over the baby's soft shoulders and belly, and imagined grabbing hold of the baby's ankles, whirling her around and flinging her against the wall, then jumping up and down on her body once she hit the floor. He imagined skewering her with the fireplace poker and roasting her like a marshmallow. He imagined taking his fingers and poking them into Elizabeth's wide blue eyes and cramming the soaking wet washcloth down her throat. He licked the tang of cranberries away. Here, Mother interrupted his thoughts. Hold her steady for me while I lay out the towel. Ronnie's hands replaced his mother's beneath Elizabeth's arms. He looked up into his mother's eyes. They were smiling. The tang in his mouth sweetened. Mother leaned over to unfold the towel beside the infant's tub. Ronnie began to release his grip. Elizabeth slipped a bit.
Could she slide all the way down until she drowned? Ronnie wondered. Not likely, but perhaps she could slip fast enough that were he to try to catch hold of her again, her tiny little neck might snap in the process. Her tiny little neck, so skinny in its frailty, trying to hold up her big, bobbling head, and maybe her big, bobbling head just might pop right off in his hands. Pop! The cranberry tang caused a slip of drool to dampen Ronnie's chin. His eyes grew wide as he stared at his sister. He let go his grip. Elizabeth started to slide. Whoa! Mother quickly caught the baby before she slipped into the shallow water and laughed nervously. She can be a little wiggle bug, can't she? Almost got away from you. You have to be more careful with your sister, Ronnie. His father spoke from the doorway as he entered the room. Yes, Ronnie agreed, taking a step back, relieved Mother had been so quick. Christmas was close. He couldn't be naughty before Santa came. But afterwards, he could feel good again. On Christmas Eve, he could not sleep. His stocking was hung, but would it be filled? Was Santa real? Would he come? And what about Schmaltzy? But this was America. Of course Santa would come. Santa and a red-nosed reindeer to leave presents under the tree. Not red-eyed Schmutzly. He had been being so very good, even though the hunger for cranberries was unendurably strong. Elizabeth was sleeping in her room across the hall. Mother and Father were sleeping in their room at the end of the hall. Ronnie stared out the dark window to the starlit night beyond. Please let Santa come, he whispered. He only had to wait until after Santa came. He couldn't be bad before Santa came, but afterwards, everything would be all right, and he could feel good again. After all, this was America, and in America Santa wanted little boys to feel good. Santa rewarded good with presents. Ronnie stared at his bedroom door. Elizabeth was across the hall. Mother and Father were at the end of the hall. At the other end of the hall, around the corner in the living room, the brightly lit Christmas tree cheerfully winked, awaiting its yearly night-stalking visitor. Every year it was Santa who came, not Santa Claus, not Schmaltzy. This was America. Ronnie pulled the blanket up to his chin and stared out the dark window. The tang was in his mouth. He just wanted to feel good. That's all. He didn't want to be naughty. And there was only one way to feel good. And here in America, Santa brought presents to the good. Maybe even a baseball bat, bright, shiny, and red. Thunk. He could hear the metallic sound of the bat's impact. Thunk, thunk. Hollow and resonant. Red, gleaming, slick. Gosh, he was so hungry. He wanted to feel good for Santa. Elizabeth was across the hall. He sat up in bed and stared at the door. Was there truly a Santa? If so, was he American? Or was he Swiss? And had he come yet? Ronnie laid back down. It was getting hard to breathe. His mouth was full. He needed to feel good. When would Santa come so he could feel good? He needed to know Santa had come before he could feel good. He sat back up and dangled his feet over the side of the bed. He stared at the door. Elizabeth was across the hall. Had Santa come yet? Ronnie was so very hungry, starving. He could taste the cranberries. He needed to feel good. Bare feet hit the floor. He crept to the bedroom door, peeked into the hall, looked to his parents' closed bedroom door, then to Elizabeth's. His hands began to sweat. Ronnie eased his way into the hall without squeaking the door hinges and padded for the living room. He peeped around the corner into the room, awash with twinkling colored lights, and gasped. Santa was real. He had come. The stockings were bulging, filled to the brim. Beneath the tree, under a big green bow, was a shimmering red baseball bat, the color of cranberries. He crouched to his hands and knees and crawled for the tree. Hesitantly, his hand touched the cold aluminum that gleamed beneath a barrage of twinkling lights. He slowly lifted it up and gave the bat a loving caress. In America, Santa wanted little boys to feel good. In America, Santa rewarded the good. He rewarded the good with shiny aluminum baseball bats to enable the good never to stop. Ronnie wanted to feel good. He had waited for so long. The sweet tang of cranberries filled his mouth as he hugged the red baseball bat and eased back down the hall. Turning the knob to Elizabeth's bedroom door, he gently pushed it open. He stepped inside. Thunk, thunk, thunk. In a gleam of red, the bat hit the floor. The flyer Ronnie's father tacked to the electric pole featured the smiling face of a 7-year-old boy. A reward was being offered for any information leading to the missing boy's whereabouts. But Jim knew no reward would ever be paid out. Jim knew Ronnie had been a bad boy. Jim had found the bloody hammer, matted with dog hair and gore. He knew Ronnie had lied about the puppy running off through the open gate, and Jim feared what Ronnie would do with a shiny new baseball bat. Yes, Ronnie was certainly a very bad boy, and very bad boys had to be whisked away forever. The Naughty List by Keith Tomlin. Andy Price, 12 years old, went to sleep on Christmas Eve in a dry, warm bed in the St. Luke's Home for Wayward Youth, and woke up on a cold, damp, stone floor. He groggily sat up and looked around the large chamber. A dozen other kids about his age were also waking up, each looking about with the same dazed and confused look that he had. There were 3 girls and 10 boys, including Andy, all wearing their night clothes. Andy stumbled to his feet, reaching out to the nearby wall to steady himself. The wall felt cold against his bare hand. He looked closer, and it seemed that the walls, and even the ceiling, were made from ice. A dim luminescence emitted from the ice, creating a soft light that lit the entire chamber. Each wall of the square room had tunnels that led off of it, and the tall ceiling had a large circular hole in the middle. Some kids began milling about, exploring the cavern and looking down the corridors. Others remained seated on the floor, unable to believe what their eyes were telling them. Andy stood apart against the wall and studied the other kids. He knew that knowledge was power, and he wanted to gain as much information as possible to ensure that he would, as always, come out on top. As he studied the kids, he began to sort them into categories. Are they weak or strong? Are they a threat? Can he manipulate them into doing what he wants? How can he use them to ensure that he will win whatever sick and twisted game this was? All of this came to Andy as naturally as breathing. He always got what he wanted, and nothing stood in his way. No teachers, no laws, not even his parents. Andy was born to Greg and Mary Price, a young couple living in Chicago. Greg was a junior architect and Mary was a kindergarten teacher. They had met in a Bible study class and soon fell in love. They married and, within a year, Mary gave birth to their first child, Andrew, or Andy, as he was lovingly called. He was a perfect baby, never crying, never raising a fuss. When he was 8 and small pets and animals started disappearing around the neighborhood, no one suspected the quiet Price kid. They put the disappearances down to rumors of coyotes roaming the Chicago suburbs. When Andy was 10 and bigger pets began disappearing, some neighbors did begin to point fingers at that odd Price child who always seemed to be watching them with a hint of a knowing smile on his young face. His parents never suspected their son was anything but a perfect little angel, at least not until they brought home their second child, Susan, when Andy was 11. Little accidents began to happen to the baby. Mysterious bruises appeared and they twice found the baby choking, having somehow swallowed a marble and a coin. The final incident was when the crib tipped over during the night and the resulting injury required Susan to have surgery. When his parents began to suspect that Andy may be behind these accidents, an electrical outlet started a fire that only Andy survived. Loud, eerie music reminiscent of the tune you would hear from a Jack-in-the-Box toy began drifting down from the hole in the ceiling. It slowly increased in volume until it shook the walls. This went on for so long that Andy thought his eardrums would shatter. He pressed his palms against his ears and fell to the floor, screaming for it to stop. And suddenly, it did. A few heartbeats later, a high-pitched voice began reciting a poem in a hypnotic, sing-song voice. Judgment passed, trial done, judged naughty every one. No games, no rules, no referee. 2 choices, fight or flee. Survive the night, only 2 ways. Kill the monster or escape the maze. The voice stopped, but the echoes rang along the corridors for minutes before finally fading away. Andy struggled to his feet as a grinding sound like an old, rusty gate being opened shook the room. Seconds later, a massive creature dropped from the hole, landing heavily on the floor. The creature stood up straight, twice as tall as Andy. It had an ape-like body that was covered with long white fur. It roared, opening its oversized mouth to reveal rows of razor-sharp teeth. The creature's long arms flexed as its powerful muscles rippled beneath the long hair. Each hand had long fingers that were tipped with wickedly sharp claws. The creature slowly swiveled its massive head to survey its surroundings. Most of the children who had been shocked by the reveal of the monster snapped to life and began running for the nearest tunnel. This seemed to amuse the creature, and it threw back its head and roared again, this time in anticipation of the hunt. When the creature first appeared, Andy had slid along the wall and ducked into a side passage. He peered out around the corner and watched the chamber quickly empty of children, except for 2. One of the younger-looking kids, a petite girl dressed in a pink nightgown, had curled into a ball on the ground and kept repeating, "This is not happening," over and over again. The other kid, a red-haired boy, stood pressed against the wall, his face filled with horror and disbelief. A large wet stain had appeared on his Marvel superhero pajama bottoms, running from his crotch to his ankles. The creature clicked his tongue as it walked over to the boy that was standing. It seemed to smile as it gently reached out one claw hand and slowly wrapped it around the boy's chest. It pulled him close and stared in his eyes before it raised his other hand and flicked a finger out, slicing the boy's throat. It seized the boy's head in its free hand and bent it back like snapping open a pixie stick. It raised the child above his head and let the blood flow into its mouth, blood splattering all over the creature's face and chest. When the blood stopped, the creature flung the lifeless body across the cavern. As the creature turned to face the girl on the ground, she began chanting, "This is not happening," louder and more frantic. The creature's arm shot out and grabbed her by the ankle. In one smooth motion, it whipped its arm around, slamming the girl's head into the wall. It split open and splattered blood, bone, and brains all over the room. As the creature began to feed, Andy's mind raced, searching for possibilities of how to control the situation. He had always known what to say and do to ensure that he got what he wanted. Now his mind came back with nothing except panic. This was new to him. Andy had never before tasted fear. He turned and ran. The passages were wide, at least 8 feet across and not quite as tall as the starting chamber. Side tunnels ran off of this one in seemingly random intervals. Echoes seemed to have a life of their own and reverberated all around Andy. He heard the echo of the girl chanting, "This is not happening," as well as the wet, hollow thunk of her head hitting the ice. He could also hear echoes of something large, moving quickly. Andy felt disoriented and began choosing passages at random, trying to put as much distance between him and that creature as possible. More screams echoed through the halls as the creature found another victim. After a few minutes, Andy paused, gasping for breath. As he looked down a side tunnel, he noticed that it opened up into a room. He skulked along that corridor and peered around the corner. The room was large and had ceilings as tall as the first chamber. Along the far wall was a wooden rack with metal items arrayed along its length. It took Andy a moment to realize what was on the rack. "Swords?" Andy whispered. As Andy took a few steps forward, a boy dressed in Transformers pajamas charged into the room. "Run! It's coming!" he yelled. Once again, Andy turned and ran. Andy didn't know how long he ran. It seemed like days. He heard screams echoing all around him. Unclear if they were old screams echoing their way back around, or new ones. He ran out of one tunnel into a larger corridor and had to immediately duck as the largest of the children tried to take his head off with a sword. "You stay away! I don't trust you, and I'll kill anyone that gets too close to me!" The boy screamed, swinging his sword in the air as he backed away from Andy. He moved past a side tunnel when a blur of white sprang out of it. The creature leaped at the boy, pinning him to the ground. It began to tear limbs off the large boy like a child might wings off a fly. Andy ran. After a few minutes, Andy ran into a chamber with 4 children standing in a semicircle, each holding a short spear. The tallest of the kids pointed to a wooden rack of spears behind them, saying, "Hey kid, grab a weapon. We're gonna kill that damn thing." Andy ran to the rack and snatched one up. Nodding at the tall boy, he walked over to the left side of the phalanx, making sure he was closest to the exit. The kids stood at the ready, watching for the creature. As ready as they were, the attack happened so quickly, only the tall kid was able to bring his spear up to attack. The creature burst out of the tunnel that Andy had come through and smashed into the circle of kids. Tall kid was able to put a spear in the side of the creature, but the powerful beast barely noticed. The creature knocked over 2 defenders with one powerful blow and grabbed Tall Kid in the other hand. Andy turned and ran. Panting with effort, Andy ran as fast as he could. Looking back, he saw one of the other defenders, a young girl with long hair wearing sweatpants and a shirt with a peace sign. She ran up alongside him, matching his speed, and gave a small nod. Andy nodded back. They ran together for a few seconds before he heard the creature roar and felt the ground shake as the beast pursued them. Andy didn't dare look, but he could tell the creature was gaining fast. The girl gave him another quick look and a shrug as she increased her speed and began to pull away from him. Andy tried to dig deeper, but he had nothing left. The creature was getting closer, and he was running out of options. He then realized that he was still holding the spear. His mind started to race through the potentials. Attacking the creature with it would do nothing except get him killed. He could drop it and hope that it increases his speed. Or, as soon as his mind came up with the third possibility, he acted without even fully realizing what he was going to do. He thrust the spear forward as he ran, and just barely, he was able to catch the girl in the back of her thigh with the tip. It wasn't a deep wound, but it was just enough to make her stumble and fall. He ran past without looking down at her. A few strides later, her scream and the sound of snapping bones echoed in the hallway. The passageway led to another room. Andy ran into it and stopped for a second to catch his breath. He felt the ground shake and knew the creature was making its way down the hall towards him. Just as Andy was about to run down another passageway, the kid with the Transformer pajamas came stumbling into the room. He held a wounded arm and was panting heavily. "Hey, kid," Andy said. "I owe you one from earlier. This way is safe. I'll catch up to you in a second. I just need to catch my breath." Andy pointed back the way he just came. "Thanks," the Transformer kid said as he started moving down the corridor that Andy just exited. As Andy turned down another passage, he smiled as he heard screams and a beastly roar of triumph. Minutes, or maybe hours later, Andy was cold to the bone and could not control his shivering, but he kept running. His feet were leaving bloody footprints with every step, but he was numb to that, as he was numb to everything else. He ran without thinking, letting his subconscious guide him through the maze. After an incalculable amount of time, he entered into a large oval room, bigger than any other he had seen so far. He slowed down as he noticed that there were no other corridors leading off of this room. As he walked further into the massive chamber, he noticed a door at the far end. Andy approached the door. A painted sign that hung over it had a single word written: "Exit." Andy reached out and placed his hand on the wood of the door. It felt real. A tear ran down Andy's cheek as he realized that this was not an illusion. He slowly turned the door handle, and the door clicked and began to open. A sharp, icy breeze blew in from the outside, and Andy started to take a step forward to cross the threshold. He suddenly stopped when he noticed shapes in the darkness outside. Dozens and dozens of little humanoid creatures stood around the outside of the exit door. Andy could feel all of their eyes on him. "Is this a trick?" Andy yelled at them, but did not get a reply. Andy tried to think, to push back the fog and fatigue that clouded his mind. Shaking his head, Andy realized that there was only one choice, and started, once again, to step through the door. As he lifted his foot, a powerful hand grabbed him around his waist and lifted him in the air. He was spun around to face the creature, its black eyes drilled into his mind, his soul. It seemed to smile as it drew him closer. The thing opened its mouth and with a deep rumble croaked out a single word.
Naughty.
That was the last thing that Andy heard before the creature's teeth tore his head from his body. The creature greedily fed and tossed the corpse behind him as it started to move back into the bowels of the maze. As Andy's lifeless body hit the floor, the sound of bells echoed through the maze. The creature grabbed its massive head and fell to the floor. As it slumped over, the little humanoid creatures began to flood into the room. These little creatures, known to some as elves, formed a circle around the fallen monster. When the bells stopped ringing, the elves began to chant in their high-pitched voices, chanting ancient and powerful words long forgotten by humanity. As the chanting grew louder, the white fur that covered the creature's body began to turn black and crumble into ash. Its bare skin started to smoke, giving off waves of intense heat. The skin rippled and pulsated and soon began to flow like lava, forming a mound on the floor. As the mound cooled, the skin hardened into a shell, into a cocoon. As one, the elves stopped their chant. They stood silent and unmoving, watching the cocoon in awe. The minutes stretched on. The silence in the chamber was deafening until suddenly a large crack echoed throughout the room as the cocoon split open on top. The elves sprang into motion. Most of the elves clapped, cheered, and danced. A few ran forward with small hammers and chisels and delicately began to chip away at the shell of the cocoon, reverently handling every small piece they chipped off to the other elves, who carefully carried it through the exit door. After minutes of chiseling, the side of the cocoon burst open, spilling its contents onto the stone floor. Gallons of thick, greenish-yellow liquid poured from the hole, and, with a splash, a tall, rotund man with a long, white beard slid from the cocoon onto the floor. A large group of elves rushed forward, some cleaning up the liquid with towels, others gently wrapping the man in heavy blankets and carrying him out into the cold, dark night. Santa Claus opened his eyes and looked around the room, stifling a yawn. His face turned from confusion to concern when he noticed that the room was filled with his little helpers. "Why, hello everyone. Is something wrong?" Santa said in his deep, booming voice, his hand stroking his long white beard. One elf stepped forward and gave a small bow. In a high-pitched, squeaky tone, he said, "We're sorry to wake you, Santa, but it's Christmas Eve and—" "Christmas Eve?" Santa interrupted. He leapt out of bed, almost knocking over a score of elves. "I overslept again! Prepare the sled, gather the gifts. I have millions of good little boys and girls to visit tonight." The elves cheered as Santa grabbed his black boots off the floor and rushed out of the room. The elves kept cheering as they followed Santa out of the bedroom. All except one. This elf walked over to a small writing desk and sat down. He removed a quill pen and a parchment from a drawer. Dipping the pen into an inkwell, he wrote, "Naughty," across the top of the paper in a smooth, elegant font. He then drew 13 lines underneath it. He put the pen down and sat there, waiting for the new list of naughty boys and girls for next Christmas Eve. Lady Frankenstein by Rob Fields. December 23rd was the absolute biggest Christmas shopping day in Strickfield. Usually, most everyone was out shopping. Strickfield Town Center Mall was even packed, the one season of the year when it usually was. However,
There was one person who had other plans during the holiday season. Just outside the village limits, in an old mansion that was thought to be abandoned, Vincent Frankenstein was alone in a third-floor laboratory and working on an experiment that was on a large slab. He had just finished affixing the hands to the lifeless female body. As he admired his work, he knew that his female creation would correct many of the flaws that had plagued his ancestor, Henry Frankenstein, many years ago. After finding Henry's thought-to-be-lost journals and studying them over immensely, Vincent had started work on trying to rediscover and harness that great ultraviolet ray that was said to have brought life to all things living. Vincent's first experiment was on a cat that had been hit by a car. Vincent fixed the body up as best he could. He achieved success in turning the ray on the cat and restoring life to it. After he had performed many tests on it, the cat had not shown any hostile tendencies. In fact, it acted as if it had never died, and even took nourishment upon its rebirth. Vincent had succeeded in restoring a dog to life with the same results. One experiment after another, Vincent would continue his research until he was absolutely certain that his updated process worked flawlessly. Once he felt that he had compiled enough data, he decided that he would do what Henry had accomplished on 2 occasions, to create a human being from dead parts and endow the amalgamation with life. Like his great ancestor before him, he secured fresh body parts for his creation anywhere he could obtain them. It had taken Vincent a great deal of time and a lot of preservation, but he had nearly completed a female body. All that was missing was a perfect head, and this part was where Vincent would exercise the utmost caution, for he remembered that Henry's first creation had turned out for the worst. Henry had unknowingly placed the brain of a dead criminal within the head of what became known as Frankenstein's monster, or simply just Frankenstein. Yes, Henry's first creation had killed many people, including a little girl who was playing by the water near her village. Vincent could not allow such a mistake to be made a second time. Henry had also recorded in another journal that he, with the help of one Dr. Septimus Pretorius, had created a female of his own, to be a companion and mate for the original creation. However, the female creation had come to reject her potential mate and was believed to be destroyed in an explosion. Vincent had thought ahead and removed his creation's reproductive system to make her sterile so that his creation could not produce potentially dangerous offspring. Vincent had read in Strickfield's local newspaper that a young woman from North Ridgeway had recently passed away due to an extreme loss of blood. He was certain that the head would be in great physical condition and would be perfect for his creation. That night, he had gone to North Ridgeway Memorial Hospital. After disengaging the security cameras, Vincent made his way to the morgue and found the naked female body with his perfect head. When Vincent thoroughly examined the body of Annabeth Winters, he couldn't understand what had caused this once-living beautiful girl to die from such an extreme loss of blood. His research on Annabeth Winters showed that she had been a top-level athlete from North Ridgeway University, so she was not a dangerous criminal. Vincent's creation would have the perfect head and brain of Annabeth Winters. It had taken Vincent a great deal of time to properly attach the spinal cord to the brain of Annabeth Winters. Upon successful completion, he stitched the flesh together to finish making the head a part of the body. Vincent hooked up the completed body to the multiple machines to both inject and conduct the circulation of blood. All he needed now was the perfect storm to grant him that one jolt of powerful lightning in conjunction with his ultraviolet ray to bring his creation to life. His Christmas wish couldn't have been granted soon enough. This Christmas season just happened to be unseasonably warm, guaranteeing a green holiday. Vincent heard the loud rumbling and knew that he needed to act quickly.
After he finished wrapping the body in special bandages to help evenly distribute the forthcoming electrical current, all was ready. He threw the switches to both open the panel in the roof and send the body upward until it was outside and exposed to the storm. Vincent monitored his instruments closely. When the needles and digital displays spiked in their readings, he knew that the lightning had struck the rods at each corner of the slab and had sent millions of volts throughout the body, in conjunction with the ultraviolet ray that he had mounted just above. Vincent brought the body back down, closing the roof panel. When the slab was back on the floor again, Vincent waited for any sign of movement. He didn't have to wait long when a hand started to move. "It's alive!" he gasped. "It's alive! My God! I've succeeded!" He took his scissors and proceeded to cut the wrappings to reveal the creation's head. Then he cut the wrappings to reveal her hands and feet. It struck him odd that the creation's stitched areas were quickly healing up into a single unified flesh. He heard his creation moaning and knew that she was scared. He looked into the beautiful face of his creation. "It's all right. You're going to be just fine. I'll take very good care of you." The creation regarded her creator for a moment and screamed. Then she started heaving. Vincent saw that his creation was angry now. Very angry. She screamed again to show her rage. Then Vincent noticed that the creation's eyes were glowing red. It was during her third scream, one for freedom, that she broke the iron shackles that had secured her wrists and ankles to the slab. "No! Stop!" Vincent held out his hands to try to take hold of her, to calm her down. The creation quickly grabbed a heavy table nearby and flung it at her creator. He ducked to avoid serious injury. When Vincent got to his feet, the creation screamed with rage again. Seeing the door to her right, she proceeded to walk to it. To her freedom. "Stop!" Vincent yelled at her. When the creation had reached the door, she found it was locked. She smashed her fists through the thick wooden door as if it were brittle. It was then when Vincent saw the full-length mirror near the control panel. The creature had no reflection. It was then that Vincent Frankenstein had gotten his answer as to why the body of Annabeth Winters was in such good condition in spite of a loss of blood. The young woman had been sired by a vampire. In utilizing her head, Vincent had made an even worse mistake than what Henry before him had made. No, he had not given his creation the brain of a dead criminal. He had given his creation the head of a newborn vampire. The creation easily smashed through the French doors and walked down the steps to the front yard to continue her escape. The rain poured on her seemingly mummified body. The creation relished her freedom in spite of the weather. She came to a dirt path and walked it for several minutes before she arrived at a road. Seeing a sign with an arrow that pointed left, she turned in that direction and headed to Strickfield. The roads were deserted as she walked to her destination. When she entered the Strickfield village limits, she noticed that every house was bright with Christmas lights and decorations. There were even houses with animatronics doing their programmed actions. As the creation stared at this winter wonderland, she started to become uncomfortable. She growled and clutched her throat. She looked and saw a man working to replace a few bulbs in a string of Christmas lights. She hissed with delight and began to make her way towards the man. When she reached him, the man saw her bare feet and looked up at her bandaged body. "Listen, you! Get the hell off my property!" he grumbled. "Not unless you want me to call the..." The man fought to break her iron grip as she held his coat and hair. She tilted his head back to fully expose his neck before opening her mouth to reveal her sharp fangs. The man screamed as she bit into his neck and began to drink. The creation felt herself becoming stronger and more vibrant with each swallow of blood. When she was finished, she shoved the corpse away from her. The creation heard other sounds nearby, mainly a car engine. She looked and saw the car in another person's yard that had damaged an animatronic Santa Claus. Shortly after, 4 high school kids, 2 boys and 2 girls, got out of the car. One of the girls pointed to the vandalized Santa. "Fuck you, Principal Van Diest!" The other girl kicked the Santa head that had fallen at her feet. "Yeah, go get fucked, you motherfucker." One of the guys pointed to the house. "Hey, we should see if Principal Van Diest is home. Then we can smash his door in and kill his ass." The other guy muttered, "I can't believe that son of a bitch expelled us from high school, just because Stevie tripped little Aileen Donnerly in the hallway yesterday." The girl named Stevie turned and shoved the guy. "And then that fucking bitch Bella Tabon beat the shit out of me for it." "Bella Tabon beat the shit out of all of us," the other girl yelled, "but Principal Van Diest expels us. I say we beat the living shit out of Van Diest. Then we find Bella Tabon and fucking kill her ass too." Stevie slapped the other girl on her arm quickly. "Hey, look!" The 4 of them turned their attention to the creation. One of the guys started laughing when he saw her staring at them from nearby. "Is that bitch dressed up like a mummy?" The other guy yelled to her, "Hey, airhead, Halloween was 2 months ago." "It's not trick-or-treat weekend, bitch," Stevie added. "None of these houses are giving out candy. But we'll beat your fucking ass if you don't fuck off," the other girl further added. When the creation wouldn't walk away, they got back into their car. The guy driving turned the wheel towards the creation and hit the gas. "Yeah, run that fucking bitch over," Stevie yelled. The creation didn't look the least bit afraid. In fact, her eyes glowed hot as she screamed with rage and raised her fists. As the car was about to hit her, the creation brought her fists down on the car's hood and hit it with enough force to both stop the car dead in its tracks and make the rear end go way off-road and slam back down just as hard. The creation moved the vehicle and saw the 4 enemies who had pissed her off. They were moaning in pain. The girls in the back were bleeding from their heads. As for the guys up front, they were both on the hood after crashing through the windshield together. She could smell how delicious the red leaking liquid from their wounds was and grabbed the driver. He screamed as the creation drank him dry. After tossing him aside, she grabbed the other guy and drank him up. That left only the 2 girls now. The creation moved to the passenger side and ripped the door off. She reached inside and pulled the girl next to Stevie out. She held her by her hair with one hand. With the other, she grabbed the neck of her turtleneck sweater. The girl cried out when she felt the creation's fingers pierce her flesh. She screamed as the creation pulled down fast, ripping the front of her turtleneck sweater away past her stomach, tearing all the flesh beyond with it. The creation threw the girl onto her back, leaving her vital organs exposed as blood pooled around the body. Stevie saw this and screamed in terror. The creation heard her and screamed with rage yet again. She moved to the driver's side door and ripped it off, throwing it aside. She reached in and grabbed Stevie. She pulled her out of the car and held her where she stood. "What are you?" Stevie choked out. As the creation moved her hands to the sides of Stevie's head to crush her skull in, she felt 2 sharp jabs on her shoulder blade. She screamed as she felt the voltage go through her entire body, making her release Stevie. When the creation refused to fall, the voltage only seemed to increase. She turned and saw Vincent Frankenstein at the other end of the taser rifle. She grabbed the cables and yanked hard enough to pull the rifle away from him.
When the rifle landed in front of her, she stomped on it with one bare foot to snap it in two. "You are my creation. Stop this at once," Vincent yelled. The creation screamed with rage and stretched her hands out into claws. As she was ready to attack Vincent, they both heard a low moan from Stevie. Seeing that the creation was distracted, Vincent rushed at her and threw his body into her to knock her down. He moved quickly and lifted Stevie into his arms as the creation suddenly sat up. Vincent ran as fast as he could and through some nearby yards. Fortunately, he knew Strickfield quite well. The creation would not catch him and Stevie so quickly, at least not so long as she hadn't yet understood all of her potential vampiric powers. The creation, frustrated that she had lost her two victims, looked up and screamed so loudly that anything of a fragile nature nearby would either break or crack. When she finished, she turned and continued walking through Strickfield. The next morning, Christmas Eve, the creation awakened and left the abandoned barn that she had taken shelter in. It had finally stopped raining, but it was quite cloudy and chilly. She seemed disoriented at how much more light was outside compared to the darkness of the night before. Just the same, she began to walk again. The creation would find its way to Strickfield Town Center Mall. The creation walked in and saw that many people were going in and out of the stores or doing business with vendors at kiosks. But what really intrigued her at that moment were the many little versions of the people. As she watched the smaller people move about, her facial expression softened. Until... "Hey, you! You can't be in here without any shoes on! You're gonna have to leave." The creation glanced to see a fat security guard next to her. She ignored him and started walking again. "Hey!" The guard grumbled and grabbed her arm. The creation screamed in anger before she grabbed him and sank her fangs into his throat, which caused panic among the shoppers who saw. After tossing the body aside, she screamed at the people and went for them. She had killed and drank 2 more before a little boy had crossed in front of her. The creation picked up the boy. "Stop!" the mother called out. "Please, don't hurt my baby!" The creation looked at the woman only for a moment before returning her attention to the boy. After examining the boy, she finally lowered him and let him go. The mother quickly snatched up her son and ran as fast as she could. Suddenly, 2 police officers appeared with their guns drawn. The creation screamed at them as they fired at her. To their disbelief, the officers found their bullets were useless. She was on them the moment their guns were empty. After she drained them of their blood, she made her way through the mall. Many families scrambled to flee once they saw her. A few of the boldest dared to try and fight the creation, only for her to drink them up. Another fat security guard tried to take her down, but was quickly and easily thrown with one hand right through the little Santa's house at the center court. It seemed as if the creation would continue her reign of terror at the mall, but she reached the main doors and smashed right through them to finally leave. Some of the police ran after her to try and subdue her, but they would find their efforts to be futile. These officers were most fortunate that the creation only smashed them to the parking lot and left them with their lives. She screamed at them before she turned and continued on her way. Stevie opened her eyes and awoke to find herself covered up in a 4-post bed. She saw that she was wearing a gown and felt that she had a bandage wrapped around her forehead. She felt a little scared as she looked around and wondered where she was. "It's all right," Vincent said to her as he entered the room. "Where the fuck am I?"
Stevie demanded. "You're in my home, young lady. I treated your headroom and put you to bed so you could rest." Stevie shrieked and pointed in a random direction. "That thing!" Vincent sighed sadly. "She's still out there, I'm afraid. I went out to try and find her, but was unsuccessful." Stevie understood immediately and pointed an accusing finger at him. "You created that motherfucking thing?" She sprang out of bed. "Fucking why?" Vincent held up his hands. "I am truly sorry for what she did to you and your friends, and nothing I can do will ever make up for that. I'll have to carry every death she's caused with me for the rest of my life." He lowered his hands and sighed. "I only wanted to be able to create life from death the way my ancestor did many, many years ago." Vincent explained everything to Stevie. The more he explained, the more Stevie became furious. She finally screamed at the top of her lungs and lunged at Vincent. She took him down and screamed more as she threw fist after fist at him. Finally, she fell off him and heaved. "God damn you! God damn you!" "Yes, perhaps God himself will damn me to hell for what I've done," Vincent agreed. "But I still have to find my creation just the same." "But how the fuck will you kill her, asshole?" Stevie mocked him. "You fucked up by putting the head of a vampire on her." Vincent sat up and faced her. "You believe in vampires?" Stevie sneered in disgust. "I was raped by one and survived. I ended up killing his motherfucking ass after he tried to sire me." She moved onto her knees and glared at Vincent with anticipation. "I'm definitely going to help you kill that fucking thing." When Stevie saw that Vincent was apprehensive, she growled and attacked him, getting on top of him again. When he looked up at her, she glared down at him. "You listen to me, motherfucker." She pointed in a random direction. "That fucking thing killed my friends. It damn near killed me. How many more people do you think she's going to kill right fucking now? Huh? They're all on your fucking head." Okay, Vincent conceded. "I was hoping to take her alive so that maybe I can fix her." Stevie got off Vincent and stood up. "There is no fixing her. You know it, and I know it." Vincent got up and faced Stevie. "I'll get you some fresh clothes, then we'll go look for my creation." Stevie continued to glare at him with distrust as he left her room. The creation walked onto the Strickfield University grounds and looked at the Christmas decorations. She didn't understand why there were so many brightly colored lights, the multiple snowmen, or even the fat men wearing red and white suits. She really didn't understand too much except that people were after her, that she needed to feed on their blood, and that she now felt certain desires growing inside her. The creation continued walking the campus, but she didn't see anybody. Of course, she couldn't have known that nearly every student had left Strickfield University for the holiday break. She screamed in frustration at not getting what she desired. She approached a nearby animatronic Santa Claus and sent its head flying right off its shoulders with a quick punch. She reached inside its open neck to kill it some more. The creation screamed and became angrier as the high voltage surged through her body. She stopped the voltage by ripping the animatronic Santa in half. "Jesus Christ! What are you doing?" someone called out to her. The creation was ready to scream at the person, but she quickly stopped and calmed down. She allowed the chunky guy with glasses to approach her. You all right?" She didn't answer, but continued to look him over. "Wow, you sure are tall." He looked down at her bare feet. "And you don't even need heels." Then he saw that her wet bandages had parted enough in several places to reveal that she didn't have any clothing on underneath. At all. "Hey, you can't stay out here looking like that. If the police see you..." He took her hand. "Come on, my house is just over there. I can give you something to wear out of my sister's room." The creation allowed the guy to lead her off campus and to the nearby house where he lived with his family. He brought her inside and took her upstairs to his bedroom. "My parents aren't home, but I'll take care of you. Listen, do you have a name?" When she still didn't answer him, he pointed to himself. "I'm Reggie. Reggie." When she remained silent, he motioned for her to stay. "I'll get a scissor and some clothes." The creation waited until Reggie returned with the promised items. He set the clothes on his desk and proceeded to use the scissors to cut off her bandages. After several minutes, he had her completely naked. "You know what? Maybe you should take a shower first," Reggie suggested. The bathroom... The creation seized Reggie and kissed him hungrily. Reggie couldn't believe his luck and kissed her back. She ripped his t-shirt off like it was tissue paper and sat down on the bed. Reggie looked down at the beautiful, naked creation who truly desired him. She growled and ripped his jeans open. He eased her onto her back, got naked, and climbed on top of her. Reggie had finished drying the creation off after giving her a shower. Then he dressed her in his sister's clothing. Even though the items fit, they were still too small for her. The t-shirt revealed her full stomach, and the jeans were more like capris. The creation looked at him and attempted to smile for the first time ever. Then she took his hand and held it between her two hands. She closed her eyes and let him kiss her lips again. He sat down next to her and admired her. "I can't believe we just had sex," Reggie told her. "This sort of thing just doesn't happen to me." The creation smiled for him a second time. Then she quickly turned her head when she heard noises coming from downstairs. "Somebody's home," Reggie explained. "Don't worry, nobody's gonna hurt you." The creation wouldn't release his hand. Only when he assured her that he would return did she let him go. He opened the door and headed downstairs. The creation heard talking, but she couldn't understand the words. It wasn't long after that she heard quick movements on the stairs along with Reggie yelling. Something was wrong. She stood up and moved to the door. She walked right through it, turning it into boards and kindling. She turned to see Vincent, Frankenstein, and Stevie in the hallway. She screamed angrily and moved at them. "Oh shit," Stevie shrieked. She raised her shotgun and blasted the creation in the shoulder. "No!" Reggie yelled. The creation only jerked back on its impacted shoulder and showed Stevie just how fast she could heal. Stevie and Vincent quickly moved back downstairs. They hadn't counted on the creation leaping all the way down the stairway. Stevie cried out in fright as the creation suddenly grabbed her and put her right through the front door. Then she turned to face Vincent and Reggie. For a moment, she seemed to convey betrayal towards Reggie. When she saw him shaking his head quickly, she realized he was innocent. Her creator and the girl had found her, somehow. Vincent raised his hands in front of him. "Let me take you home. I can fix you. Please, don't be like this. No more killing, please. Just come with me." The creation still didn't understand him, but she screamed with hatred at him. She was about to grab him when she took another shotgun blast, this time in the back. The creation turned to see Stevie. "Come and get me, you fucking bitch," she called out as she turned and ran. The creation screamed and darted outside. It hadn't taken the creation long to almost be upon Stevie. Suddenly she felt Vincent jumping onto her back. As she was about to grab him, she felt the sharpness of a needle going into her shoulder, followed by something squirting out. Vincent dropped off her back and stuck her with a second needle. The creation fell to her knees and then onto her side. "We don't have much time, Stevie. Let's get her back to the lab," Vincent said. "I can't believe I'm agreeing to let you try and fix her," Stevie muttered. "You should just fucking kill her." When Stevie saw Reggie coming outside, she pointed right at him. "Shut the fuck up and get back inside, you fucking fat fuckstick." "What are you going to do with her?" he demanded.
When Stevie raised the shotgun to him and pumped it, he quickly squealed and darted back inside. The creation opened her eyes and felt as if she was moving, yet she found she was incapacitated. She looked up and saw the sky was moving fast. She clenched her teeth and found the chain securing her wouldn't give. She growled through her teeth as she exerted her strength again. This time, the chains broke in several places. She moved to her feet and leapt from the pickup truck. As soon as she landed on her bare feet, she heard the truck brake to a halt. Vincent and Stevie got out. The creation looked at them and screamed the loudest she had ever screamed. The two of them tried to get back into the truck, but the creation moved to it quickly. She easily lifted the truck and threw it right off the side of the bridge they were on. The truck soon made a huge splash in the Castalia River, where the raging waters would carry it away. Vincent and Stevie turned to run, but the creation only had to leap to catch them. She backed them up to the edge of the bridge. It would take a combined, desperate attempt for them to survive. As Vincent injected the creation with his last 2 tranquilizers, and Stevie placed her shotgun under the creation's chin and blasted the top of her head off. The creation staggered back and fell off the side of the bridge. She dropped into the Castalia River, where the raging waters quickly carried her body away. "You think we stopped her?" Stevie asked quickly. Vincent sighed. "I don't know. I just don't know." On Christmas morning, the creation had awakened. She didn't know how long she had been unconscious, but she was lying on the side of the river. She slowly pulled herself to her feet and felt her head, which was fully restored. She didn't understand how she had survived, and she really didn't care. There was only one thing that creation did care about, and put her hands on her swollen belly. Vincent Frankenstein hadn't counted on the creation's vampiric healing factor restoring the ovaries that he had removed prior to giving her life. On Christmas Eve, she had conceived life with Reggie. Later on Christmas Day, her first child would be born. The first child of a superior new race.
And that's all for tonight, my spookies. A stocking spilled open with killers in red, curses sealed with ribbon, and snow that buries everything but the echoes of the screams. Remember, this is only the beginning. Every Saturday until New Year's, another long, cozy binge of holiday horror will drop into your feed. More ghosts, more storms, more reasons to sleep with the lights on, and the tree still plugged in. Tomorrow, something uninvited slips into the stream yet again. Some kind of unknown broadcast, crackling voices from the past, addressing you like an old friend who knows exactly where you're listening from. On Monday, we have Terrifying and True, where we unwrap the hidden dangers of a Victorian Christmas. Candlelit trees that turned parlors into pyres, toxic decorations, poisoned treats, and real history that proves the good old days of Christmas were anything but safe. And of course, on Wednesday, a brand new weekly spooky Christmas horror story by the one and only Charles Campbell blows in with the storm. A lonely widower, a Christmas Eve hurricane, a ghost who may not be what she seems, and something ancient in the weather that has come to collect a debt. Until then, my spookies, keep the cocoa hot, keep the volume high, and I'll see you on Monday. Ho, ho, ho.